And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Attention, roll call.
Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, I'm still traveling right now. I'm looking like Tim Pool today. It's kind of cold out. So how's everybody doing? Monday morning, we're back for you. Had a little rough week, a little bit of a transition. I was able to bounce in and back and forth with the podcast. But John and Marlon held it down. And of course, the finest Unfiltered Network. How's everybody doing? Got a great episode for you. A lot of content. I think this one's going to be fun. So, John, let's get into it. Let's rock. It's Monday morning. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so not this Friday that just passed, but the Friday before, we discussed an incident that there was possibly an NYPD sergeant who was arrested in a sex sting in the Penn Station bathroom. And then I guess we were proven right. We were proven right yet again. Weeks later, the New York Post, Tina Moore, puts out an article saying that, in fact, there was an NYPD sergeant caught in the Penn Station bathroom sting. Like we reported the week prior, that the sergeant was modified first. Then there was some little outlash that came out from the podcast, The Finest Unfiltered, Sal Greco, and we were all discussing it on the network. And then he was suspended. And there's a lot of questions that remain. This article comes out again. Everything's just what it is to be alleged that this is in fact what happened. That an NYPD sergeant assigned to the chief of department's office was involved in a sex sting. This marks the second time that a sex scandal has broke out of the chief of department's office, and again, it looks like there's a cover up. Marlon, what are you thinking?
It may actually be the third time, because didn't the that lieutenant, her name escapes me now, but if you recall, like about a month ago, we had there was the incident involved, maybe 2 months ago. There's an incident involving the lieutenant who had sex with another with a female subordinate in 1PP. I think
You're
she
right.
actually
You're right.
out of chief of department's office.
Spot on the ball. You're right.
You're right. I forgot about that.
Good call.
So yeah. I guess that meme we had of the orgies at chief of department's office seems to be accurate, right?
They moved on from one police plaza to another location.
Yeah, I guess we know what they do. After the after what they do on the 4x, or the midnights over there. But listen, morning everyone. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's very curious that these stories get buried on the weekend. Yeah, buried on the weekend news cycle. And if anyone thinks that is not deliberate, you're crazy, because all these stories that hit seem to always land. Certainly the ones that Tina Moore writes are always on the weekend. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about today, and this story just. Everything we talk about, the NYPD is in the story, and it keeps it once again, even though the job knows that we're most likely going to talk about it, and that, this ain't the old days where you're going to be able to hide these things so easily. Even though they know it, they still went on and tried to hide this and tried not to actually discipline the sergeant. And by the way, this sergeant is also, he from what we hear, he goes around and inspects other units. So this guy's supposed to be a disciplinarian himself. So, yeah. But let's go.
You know what's interesting about this? So it started off kind of a joke, right? Not necessarily a joke, but John and I would always talk about how this is just, there's so many different tiers within the NYPD, and it's a tiered system when it comes to discipline. But the more that we talk about it, especially for the past year, it's become prevalent that there is a three-tiered system, and that three-tiered system is so prevalent and prudent in this case, and no longer can that be argued and denied. There is a three-tiered system. If you're general population NYPD, you don't have any connections, you're a regular employee, you're a cop, or even someone with rank. Let's say you're a lieutenant, but if you're part of general population, that's where the patrol guide, the rules apply to you, and even the law. But when you're in that tiered system, you're tier 1, you're in that upper echelon, you have armor that protects you from everything. But when you're tier 2, you're someone's favorite, you're a crony, you're in that circle of nepotism, and that's what we see right here. The rules don't apply to you, and you can walk on water. I mean, it's. I love to talk about standards and comparisons. Let's compare Marlon. Marlon was terminated from the NYPD with zero due process. Zero. According to the NYPD, he didn't take the vax, so he was dirty. But I tell you what, this sergeant is a lot more dirty to me by getting together with other men in Penn Station. John, you said it, it's hilarious because it's so true. I wouldn't even want to take a piss in Penn Station, let alone have a sex rendezvous. And yet, obviously, when we talk about those tiers, it's more prevalent because he was modified. And if it wasn't for this podcast, it would have just sizzled away. He was modified, and all of a sudden now he was suspended. And yet, at this point, we don't know if there's any criminal charges. We still don't know. I don't know what's going on with this dude. I don't care if he's gay or what his sex life is, but it tells you a lot about what this person is. To have a rendezvous in the Penn Station bathroom, it is disgusting. This is disgusting. This is not someone that you want doing police work around your family, around his Joel Ramirez saying, you don't want somebody like this around your kids. Exactly. But yet, John had to make the decision to retire early, and Marlon was terminated with zero due process. Not even modified, just terminated. Think about that. Look at the comparison.
So the smell of piss, shit, and homeless people doesn't arouse you, is what you're getting at. I mean, you know,
is there some type of sex fetish with that? I've heard necrophilia, all these kind of crazy things, but it's.
I'm sure. I think there's fetishes for everything.
You gotta look it up.
You know, and they all seem, you know, there's a lot of deviants, and they all seem to work at the chief of department's office. But you know, it's. I mean, so we could probably figure out all the fetishes in the world just by checking out, like interviewing personnel in the chief of department's office. And like that's the thing, dude. Like, you know, like everyone's like, oh, you know, it's gross, this, it's that. It's like, all right, just picture this. You're a single guy. You're a single dude. You're straight. Smoking hot girl comes. She wants to have sex with you in the Penn Station bathroom. You're a police officer. You're a sergeant in charge of adhering the integrity of the department, the professional standards. Is this something that you're gonna do? Like I'm not, like, if I was single, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. And I'm you know, and I don't want to get into my sex life, but you know, I'm married now. But I'm just saying, like, women are my weakness, right? Not that I cheat on my wife, but I'm just saying, like, a woman could like sway me, but they can't sway me to do that. You know, one, because I would be worried about my job. I would be worried about my credibility. You know, it's illegal. And then like Eric brought it up. What the hell's going on at Penn Station that we're doing sex things in the bathroom? So like, you know, there's a problem there. Like, you know, something's off. If you're a police officer there, are you really going there? You know, it's no different than meeting a prostitute or anything else. You're having like rendezvous, like sexual encounters with random people in the bathroom. I mean, I don't care, straight, gay, whatever the hell you do. It's disgusting. It's gross, and it's unbecoming of a police officer. And I think that's the point that nobody's really grasping. It's like, you're a police officer. Not only are you supposed to uphold the law, but you're supposed to uphold your standards in your profession. And now you're a supervisor, and you're a supervisor in charge of issuing discipline for other cops. And again, it's just the ultimate hypocrisy of this department and what we've seen under Eric Adams. The rules and the standards do not apply for for a small minority of people. Everybody else, they do. Like we were talking just before we jumped on, and Eric was pointing out how, like, look what they did to Marlon. They fired him, and he didn't even do anything wrong, you know? And I'm like, well, to be fair, they would have fired Marlon because he didn't know the right people anyway. Like, if he would have got caught in the bathroom, he would have got arrested. He would have been immediately suspended, and he'd be terminated later on. You know what I mean? And what we're hearing now is that this person they tried to sweep this entire thing under the rug. And it seems to me like we have another Jeffrey Madry scandal on our hands where they intervened in a lawful arrest and, where possibly the other parties involved were arrested and the cop was cut out. So again, this is all alleged, and this is all the fault of the New York City Police Department because we actually don't know what happened. And just as far as the New York Post goes, Tina Moore, if you notice, she's only writes on the weekend. So that tells me she's only allowed to write on the weekend. And that's why, because people don't read the news traditionally on the weekend. They get much less views and much less eyes during the weekend. But the Finest Unfiltered is going to correct where that is falling short. So stay tuned because we're going to be dropping a weekly newsletter soon enough where we're going to be labeling out all of the incidents that happened related to New York City crime and the NYPD shortly. So sorry, New York Post.
Yeah, so I made a mistake. I'm looking at her 58 right now, but it's remember Lieutenant Headley? Yes, from ceremonial unit, right?
Okay.
So
technically chief of the department's office. It's the bigwigs. Probably, I think it might even be PC's office, but whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The point is though that these incidents keep happening at that top level of 1PP, and also nobody can say the NYPD isn't diverse, because it doesn't matter. We have dudes getting in trouble. We have straight dudes getting in trouble. We have gay dudes. We have you name it. We're a very diverse department here, But yeah, to John's point, this sergeant is gonna go to the trial room, okay? So he's gonna get his due process, and he's gonna have to, account for what he did. And in John's case, John was forced to leave, otherwise he would be terminated, And in my case, I was terminated and I didn't go to the trial room. So maybe maybe I did it wrong, Maybe I should have gone to Penn Station like this guy, Well, provided of course I know some chief at 1PP, because what you're seeing here is that tiered ranking of the tiered ranking of cronyism and nepotism that Eric talks about. But my question to you guys is, do you think she was protected? Do you think he was protected because of the chief, or because Eric Adams doesn't need more scandal coming out the NYPD? Because that's the real question everyone should be thinking about here.
I'm glad that you said that. So before I even get into that, I just want to say I usually don't address the trolls, but I think this one's pretty nasty. Eric S., you hide whoever you are, John Shell, one of these guys, maybe. But I think it's pretty nasty, this comment. It says, I hope they're not using Marlon for the color of his skin. So for the fact of you just to put that out there, that says a lot about you. That's a disgusting comment. So anyway, I'm not even going to go any further, but the point is you have to ask yourself what kind of demons you have if this is what you're thinking, if this is what you're trying to perpetuate. Anyway, Bob, outstanding question. So I think it's both, especially right now with the Eric Adams administration trying to look like it's a clean operation and be free of any potential corruption, especially right now as we get closer and closer and dive in with the election. However, even without that, I do think that because of the sex scandals, especially surrounding excessive overtime with Lieutenant Epps, the lieutenant that you just mentioned, the female relationship, the allegations that have fermented within this administration, within this NYPD leadership, the cost that comes with it, the appearance of the public eye right now, I do think this would have been an attempt to sweep it under the rug, would have been implemented at any point. But right now, even further, do I think that he would have been just modified? Probably he would have been suspended, but maybe just for a couple of days, right? Because the maximum you could suspend someone without pay is 30 days, right? I think people should understand that, right? So for the NYPD, if you're going to suspend someone for an extended period of time, after 30 days, they'll be suspended, but they'll continue to be paid. And usually that is a good implication that person will be terminated. So I do think he would have been suspended, but just for a couple days. Now, I think there's also something I want to touch on. So I received a lot of message, and some people, obviously, there's a lot of jokes around this, but some people are saying, well, we're picking on the guy because he's gay. I tell you right now, I have a lot of gay friends. I've had gay friends my whole entire life. I know a lot of gay guys work in the police department and even the Marines, right? That were that had to hide because they were in the Marine Corps. And I can tell you this, they wouldn't take part in this. It has nothing to do with sexual orientation. This has to be with professionalism. This has to do with unbecoming behavior as a cop. It's disgusting and viral. If you're a heterosexual or homosexual or whatever you're into, the fact that you want to take part in a Penn Station bathroom, and exactly what John and I were talking about before is, if there's a sting going on there, I mean, why are you there? Like, what exactly is going on there? How deep into it, if there's a sting going on there, and what else do you know? And how many times have you been there before? Because I would say this. I find it highly unlikely that this was the first time that this happened at this bathroom or other bathrooms. I don't know if they're meeting up on Grindr or something like that, but usually when someone gets caught, they've done it before. It just shows we have, unfortunately, disgusting human beings on the job. Whatever you do in your bathroom, not your bathroom, in your bedroom or whatever the case is. Well, hey, at least if it's your bathroom, it's clean, right? But this is disgusting, man. But Marlon, to your point, Eric Adams running for election right now, he doesn't need another scandal. It's scandal. I mean, the potato chips was the climax of it all. We didn't need something after the potato chips. But right now, even with that, he's tier 2, which means he's protected by nepotism. This would have been swept under the rug.
Yeah. And we got a 1PP deviant, probably from the chief of department's office on Juju. He says, sad to see this platform go from pro-crop to anti-cop in a span of months. Grift is going to grift. So I don't think that anything that we're talking about is anti-cop. I mean, what you're doing is saying, no, it's perfectly fine that police officers act as deviants going out in public. A few years back, there was a lieutenant and a sergeant, a male and a female, and they got caught in the bathroom of a corporate building in Manhattan. Podcast didn't exist then. If it did, we would have been reporting on it. So, and it's just as gross, I mean, well, it's a little less gross than being in Penn Station bathroom, but it's not much better. It's not much better because, like, my comment still holds. I don't care how good looking the girl is. I don't care how single I am. I don't care how horny I am. You're not gonna get me to do it. And how about this? You're not gonna get me to do it now. And and if I was single now and I'm retired, and I don't have that same level of responsibility and know that anything I do, I'm gonna be on the front cover of the paper. So like, I don't have that anymore. I mean, whatever. I probably would be on the front cover of the paper, but you know what I'm saying. You get my point. And so, like, to try to paint us as we're anti-cop, that's the funniest stuff to me. That is just a furthest stretch from reality that it could be, because the reality of it is there's a little bit of both in what Marlon asked. It's like, yeah, because he's in the top tier, he's gonna get a little different response. I've seen people get jammed up for drunk driving, and I seen people get launched across the city, right? And then I seen people get jammed up for drunk driving, and I seen them stay exactly where they are, no big issue, get restored. They stay in the same spot, whether it's details, not details. And I'm like, it's everything in the NYPD is arbitrary and capricious. It's definitely more arbitrary the higher up the more people So you're assigned to the chief of departments, you're landing soft, right? These people get promoted. Like where do they go? They never even leave the building, right? They never even leave one police plaza. So, and they get their choice of assignments. And then, when it's time they serve a year or two in a rank, they're getting special assignment money. But I think bigger than everything right now, the election is everything, right? So the last thing Eric Adams needs is another Jeffrey Madry type sex scandal. And again, this is exactly what this is. We're going to look a little further into it. We don't have all the information now. When we get the information, we will present it. But it looks like there was an arrest and somebody squashed it. That's what it looks like. And we're going to figure it out. And when we do, we're going to report on it and see what happens. But that's exactly what it looks like. This is a cover up to pretend that, the corruption scandals that are swirling around Eric Adams, everything's good. Everything's good right now. Let's just keep the next few weeks. Let's just keep all the corruption news down, and we'll be good.
Yeah. So if you guys recall, the incident that got Chief Madry in trouble was when he squashed a detective's arrest in the 7-3 after he had an incident where he allegedly pointed a firearm at some teenagers. Now, if Jeffrey Madry had to go to the trial room for that, I mean, he went to the trial room, and the PC disagreed with the conclusion, and therefore nothing really happened to him. But the point is that if he had to go to trial room, then whoever squashed this arrest should definitely have to face some sort of consequences for it. Yeah, and we've heard rumors that it was that Chief O'Hare, who also works for Chief of Department's office, might have been involved. And again, these guys are at the top, and these guys are setting policy and setting discipline, and yet they're not following it for themselves, and their cronies aren't subject to any of it. So I've said this many times on the show, like, how could they expect to go? Like, we've seen pictures of Shell at the police academy talking to the recruits or the new guys in the academy, right? And how can you go talk to these guys and acclimate them with the disciplinary system of a paramilitary organization if you refuse to abide by those same rules at the top? And if you have a different set of disciplinary standards for your own cronies and your subordinates, how do you expect these new guys who were coming off the street, they were regular civilians yesterday, and today they're cops expected to behave at a higher standard? How do you expect them to follow up that? I think that we've said it many times before that this stuff trickles down from the top. And when you see incidents like those two rookies who were involved in the brothel, maybe about 3 months ago itself, when you see that type of behavior, you have to ask yourself, that sense, that lack of discipline that's at the top, it didn't just that environment doesn't just sprout up overnight at the bottom. I think it's the job itself. And when you have undisciplined people at the top, it just trickles down, and you get more incidents like this. It also manifests itself in nihilism from the boots on the ground, but that nihilism it creates an atmosphere where that kind of corruption and misconduct festers. So what I'm pointing out here is that if you're at the top and want people, you have to set standards of discipline for the rest of the job to follow, and you can't. Your own people have to abide by it. Otherwise, how do you expect the cops on the ground not to, engage in corruption and misconduct?
Joe Ramirez says, and just to note, just think about how much the job has changed, right? And another indication about the tiered system we talk about and how more prevalent it is right now with this leadership under Eric Adams' administration. Joe Ramirez says, 2018, a detective was arrested for masturbating in his backyard. Now, I'm not saying that's right either. I don't know what type of exposure this detective had in his backyard. If it was where kids could see it, but at least it's his own backyard. We're making a comparison here, right? It's probably far cleaner, and it's his own backyard. And hopefully, he thought he was covered. I don't know. I don't know why people are doing these crazy things. But the bottom line is, we're talking about a Penn Station bathroom. Now, I'm curious, John and Marlon, what type of vaccinations do you think you need to have deviant sex in the Penn Station bathroom? What type? Because I'm sure there's all kind of parasites in that bathroom. That's disgusting. That's viral. First of all, I don't know if you guys do the same thing, but if I go to a nasty place to use the bathroom, like there's no choice you have, and you have to pee, I'm taking my shoes and I'm putting Clorox on the bottom of them on my shoes. What are these guys doing? These guys, these guys are first of all touching you know what? They're touching that dirty bathroom in Penn Station. I highly doubt these guys went there with gloves on. I mean, this is just disgusting and viral. But what type of vaccinations do you think you need for a Penn Station bathroom? Do you think a booster would be enough? What do you think would do?
Yeah, you definitely need your tetanus shot. That's for damn sure. You know,
Until the 10 years.
Yeah, it's all right, Eric. They have the COVID vax. That's all that matters. You know? They're safe.
They're clean, right? They're clean. They're good to go.
You know, and here's the other thing that, like, you know, here's the other thing, and people point out on the chat. It's like there's a bunch of questions here because there are some little nuances here that matter as it relates to department discipline. A crime's a crime. I don't care if you do it in a public bathroom or whatever. If it's accessible to the public and you do it in public, if one guy gets arrested for it, then you should get arrested for it, right? That is the basis of our law. Justice is supposed to be blind, right? It even goes back as far as into the Bible. Doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, you get the same amount of justice, right? It's literally biblical what we've written into law, and we're perverting that, you know. So when it comes criminally, that's getting played with. But here's where it matters departmentally too. On top of it, was this individual on duty? Was he on overtime? Right? And those are two big questions. Because one, if he was on duty, that it should be 100% immediate termination. And two, if he was on overtime, without a doubt, I mean, like, he should have to pay that money back as well. Like, what were you doing? Now all his overtime should be audited. And honestly, all of the discipline that he's issued to police officers, that should also be audited. Because how could you trust this person that's scamming on overtime, involved in sexual rendezvous while they're on duty and while they're on overtime? Now, we don't know if he's off duty and we don't know if he's on duty. And again, that is the result of the least transparent administration that New York City has had in the modern age. The Eric Adams administration, the NYPD being run under Jessica Tisch, is the least transparent version of the NYPD we've ever seen. And Ray Kelly's police department was notorious for not being transparent. They were way more transparent. Discipline was way more effective under Ray Kelly than it is currently. Jessica Tisch does not run the New York City Police Department. That is a sham to get her elected in years down the road. Eric Adams runs the police department. They're covering up absolutely every piece of corruption that's fallen out. I don't know. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting he was on duty. I'm betting possibly he was on overtime.
That's
a valid question, John. I'll tell you why. Because the rumor is he works for some inspections unit attached to chief of department's office. And, you know, if you know anything about like inspections, usually these guys like, you know, they have, I don't think they have like steady tours. I think they have tours that they have to like inspect a certain amount of guys. I was never a supervisor, so I'm just telling you from the experience of a cop. So these guys have a certain amount of tours that they have to cover every week and scratch guys. Scratch, for those of you who don't know, means they show up and they scratch their memo book, or they scan their phone, as it is now in the modern NYPD, which means they basically you know, showed up and make sure that cop was doing what he was supposed to do, or he was on post, or you know, he had the necessary you know, tools or paperwork on patrol, right? So chances are this guy had his own department vehicle, and he had, being from the chief of department's office, he probably had a lot more freedom than, say, a precinct integrity control officer who's attached to a precinct. And even they have a lot of freedom to, you know. So that's a valid question, whether this went on while he was actually on duty. You know, I said many times before, like when I got into Intel, the inspector who brought me there told me about all the freedom that's in Intel. And it's true. In these units, you have a lot of freedom to you know, go about the city and you can finagle a lot of like what you're doing, like I'm going to so and so precinct because I want to talk to the FIO. And in this case, I think this sergeant has a lot of those similar type of freedom, So asking whether this occurred on duty or on overtime is a very valid question. And again, it could be one of the reasons why they want to bury this, because if you look into it, it leads back to further corruption. And the last thing they would want is another overtime scandal on top of a sexual scandal coming out of chief of department's office again. So and by the way, I think if we're getting a lot of critics who are calling us homophobic or trying to say that we're criticizing the boots on the ground, this has been a tactic of 1PP, and in particular Chell and Cass, more so Chell. It's to displace criticism of 1PP onto our criticism of 1PP leadership with criticism of cops on the ground. And we've said time and time and time that we're criticizing the leadership because they're setting the table for policy and for the standards of conduct in the department. And if we're getting that pushback, I'm pretty sure that pushback is coming from 1PP and not some random cops who just happen to jump on and want to call us that.
You know what's interesting about this? This sergeant, for our active and retired members, they're already aware he's in the inspections unit. For anyone who's outside the NYPD and another law enforcement agency, I'm sure you have something similar where they inspect the internal foundation of the job, right? Not external factors. They check, make sure cops, their uniform, their appearance, things like that. But what I find interesting about the inspections unit, and over the years, especially even when I was working, you guys were working, it was always these like strange people in this unit. Like I remember Inspector Solano. I think everyone knows who that guy is. He was in charge of inspections unit for housing, and this guy was just a complete nut job. Like, who's inspecting this guy? I mean, nothing he did had like significance and purpose. Like to have an interaction with a member of the service and take their memo book back when it wasn't on the phone, the actual book, and spend an hour going through pages. And all that memo book is your notes as a police officer with a chronological timeline just to keep, just for, it's kind of like so you could assimilate what your day is like, just to show chronologically what you did. But he would go through this thing like it was a Bible. And there was a lot of rumors that he avoided going to gun runs and violent calls. We always had these strange people. I mean, there was something wrong. Something demented about this man, that you're making over $200,000 a year as an inspector, and this is what you're doing. And I mean, this guy was just a complete loser. And the fact that, former Chief Joanne Jaffe, which is another crazy maniac, that you had this guy heading your unit. I mean, it had no purpose. If it's to make the cops better and have a better performance and better uniform presence, fine. But to sit there and spend an hour going through a memo book, and most of the time, including myself, you would have to go do your job and say, hey, and come back a half hour later, and this guy would still be going through your book. There's always strange people in this unit. It's quite, and yet they're the ones inspecting everyone else. Who's inspecting them? I mean, it's as clear as day. Maybe the NYPD should not just be cleaning up bathrooms, but they need to start cleaning house. And we need to get rid of this three-tiered system. This three-tiered system is so prevalent right now. We talk about it all the time. General population has a different weight of the administrative infractions in policy and even the law in comparison to Tier 1. Tier 1 is untouchable. Who is Tier 1? That's your upper echelon of the NYPD. Who's Tier 2? Tier 2 is someone like this, Sergeant Michael Merritt, who's in a unit at the chief of department, who gets favoritism, part of that circle of nepotism, and this was getting swept under the rug. And this encompasses many factors, because there's scandal after scandal right now at the NYPD. It encompasses exactly what John said. Was he on overtime? Because that's a scandal going on in the NYPD. Was he on duty? Right? Is it another on duty? Would you call this on duty booty? I mean, they're not exactly getting booty, but what they're doing, it's most likely on duty, right? Isn't that what he's probably doing inspections while he's doing this? I mean, was he on overtime? Another scandal. So it's scandal after scandal, and this weaves into everything. And it shows, where is it coming from? The top. And you know what? To your point, Marlon, do we criticize the rank and file? Not as a whole, but will we give a fair assessment when someone's out of line? Absolutely. And this sergeant is completely out of line, and I consider him rank and file. But why is he out of line? Because he's protected by this tier system. So yes, we should knock him, because if it was someone from general population, they would be suspended immediately and arrested and charged. So complete different comparison.
Yeah. Can you imagine how many of these incidents have occurred and have been swept under the rug? Yeah.
Yeah, if the walls could talk in One Police Plaza and on Pearl Street on the casting couches, on the large, expensive casting couches that we have throughout offices, the deputy mayor and all these other offices, yeah, if the walls could only talk, yeah, God only knows what the hell's going on, honestly, because just imagine the horrible things that we're reading about in the paper, the conduct Unbecoming, and what that effect has had actually on the rank and file, how people look at the New York City Police Department. I mean, again, these are the people leading the New York City Police Department. These are the people in charge of integrity, in charge of discipline. And yeah, I think, and you're right. I think socially awkward people have always went more towards that role. There were, to be fair, like I know some people that just didn't give a crap and they went to inspections to get overtime towards the end of their career, and they really, all they did is just investigate the cases they had. They weren't driving around bothering you. But there are certain guys that take that position, and there's something seriously wrong with them. I've ran into duty captains as a cop, as a sergeant, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Like the shoe flies. And I'm like, there's something seriously wrong with this guy. Like, I don't know what the hell's wrong. And same thing for inspections. I remember as a young sergeant, I'm like on a job, and my driver's like, yo, Sarge, that guy over there, he's an inspection sergeant. He GO'd me. And he's watching us on the corner. So I was like, watch this. So I'm like talking to the complainant, and I just stop in my tracks, and I beeline right for the guy. That's the guy that I think is the inspection sergeant. He's like across the street. I just beeline towards him, like where he wasn't expecting it. He freaks out and he runs. He literally runs away. And I was like, oh yeah, 100%. That was inspections. And then I seen him like 2 weeks later, and I'm like, yo, bro, you're a sergeant? And he's like, yeah. I was like, why'd you run? Why'd you run the other day? You were like a creep the other day. I didn't know who you are. I was coming over to ID you to make sure you were right. You looked like you needed something. And he goes, no, I didn't run. He was like, I was going to come over. I was like, oh, were you? I was like, that. He literally, I just beeline towards him, like across the thing. And I started like moving. He ran. He literally ran. Like, this is what's wrong. Like, could you imagine being a sergeant in the New York City Police Department? Another sergeant's about to approach you. You're on duty working, and you turn around and run. Like, and by the way, I never got GO'd, so they weren't watching me for anything. The guy was just a real creep weirdo, real socially awkward weirdo. Brooklyn South Inspections. I don't remember his name.
Yeah. I agree with you, John. There's some real weirdos in those units. I was in Brooklyn North. There was this shoe fly captain who real like wacko, One night, I'm in the FIO's office finishing up a warrant because the next morning we're supposed to, take it to the DA's office. So I'm finishing it up, and apparently he was in the building looking at the roll call. He looks over the roll call. Apparently he might have went downstairs to the lounge, and then he comes back up and he goes, where's Bethel? He's on the roll call. He didn't sign up. He goes, give him a CD. So he actually writes me a CD, right? The desk sergeant comes upstairs to the FIO's office. She sees me on a computer. She goes, Bethel, you were here all this time? I go, yeah, Sarge. I've been here all this time. She goes, the shoe fly was looking for you. I was like, I don't know. He didn't come up here, So she goes, I'll let the CO know this ain't going anywhere, And this is the I have other incidents involving this guy, But John is absolutely right. There's some real like whack jobs in these inspections units, guys who I personally think a lot of them choose that unit so they don't have to do anything, and you know, but yeah, this incident is like, it's like, all it does is it creates it festers more nihilism in the department, because like I said, when the guy's on patrol, you're a guy on patrol, and we've seen it many times. Again, these young guys don't seem to have their head in the game. They just want to get through the day. You walk around in New York City and you look at them. How many of them are actually look like they're happy to be there? When they see incidents like this sergeant being protected, whereas they're getting scrutinized for every little thing, and the job is ready to fire you for every little thing, right? When they see that, does anyone think that makes them feel like they're appreciated and their job actually matters? Because the rules actually matter in this job anymore. Because I would think they question it, and I think we're seeing that when you look at them and they seem miserable to be there, because again, they're getting scrutinized for everything, while here's some guy who's clearly broke the law, broke department rules, and it embarrassed the job, and he gets to keep his job. He didn't get suspended until it really hit the news cycle and we started talking about it. So it's just, we're seeing the product we're seeing in policing in NYPD is because of things like this.
Well, I think we should put an emphasis more on this and say that this particular sergeant should be more informed about Penn Station. Right? If we're talking about this seriously right now, this sergeant should be more informed than someone that may be on patrol, or someone that maybe is in another precinct in transit. In transit, moving around. Maybe they're doing a detail. And I'm not saying someone should be taking part in this, but that leaves questions. Was this considered an off-limits location? Right? Because there's an ongoing sting going on at the Penn Station bathroom. Obviously, this is happening not with an on-duty or off-duty cop, but it's happening. They're doing a sting at these bathrooms. So is it an off-limits location? And if it is, that means this sergeant should be aware of it, right? So our NYPD friends and family that watch this show, they know exactly what we're talking about. If you're from an outside agency, maybe you have something similar. And off-limits locations to the precinct you're assigned, that you cannot go to a particular place because there's an appearance of impropriety at that location. Same thing for the police enthusiasts. Understand that? So and usually at a precinct, they have a list of these locations of what's off limits, what's considered a cooping prone location where cops tend to hide to get naps, and also what's considered a lawful location where cops from the entire city should not be taking part because of potential appearance of impropriety and potential crimes at a particular location. So, and this particular sergeant is in the inspections unit. So they're supposed to be aware of the entire city, what's going on. So he should be more informed. What I'd like to know also, the Internal Affairs, what I like to call the Selective Affairs Bureau, were they aware of a sting operation going on at Penn Station? That's what I would like to know. What part did Internal Affairs take in this? Obviously, in that report written by Tina Moore, there's a lot of information missing, a lot of context. So what did Internal Affairs know about this, if any? What did they know about this sting? Was this an off-limits location? And how many times has Sergeant Michael Merritt been there? Is this part of his routine when he goes out there to do inspections? Is the Internal Affairs Bureau doing an investigation to determine how often he goes there, if this is an on-duty thing? I suspect it's on duty, and I suspect it is all the time. We haven't heard anything about it, but I would make that assumption.
Yeah, so when you're involved as a uniform member of service, right? You're involved in an incident and you're arrested or you're summoned. The first thing the other agency is required to do, or if it's the agency, your own agency, they're required to notify IAB, right? When you arrest a member of the service, right? When you arrest a sworn law enforcement officer. And then IAB generates an internal affairs log. They notify the chief of internal affairs. And they also require to notify the duty chief. And the duty chief will make the decision, usually should make the decision to suspend, arrest, suspend, whatever it's going to be. But something this high would go directly to the chief of internal affairs, and he would usually override the duty chief. So that decision to not suspend immediately was made at the higher levels. And then I think because they figured, I guess reporters were calling around about this, and because of that, then I think they decided to suspend. So that's traditionally how things work. So again, discipline, we're seeing it again not equal. And that's it. I mean, I don't really have anything much more on this other than like it 100%. This isn't anti-police. This isn't anti anything. This is if you have a unit called professional standards, the people that are in that unit should probably uphold some type of professional standards. If you have a unit called the Internal Affairs Bureau, which is supposed to uphold the integrity of the NYPD, they should probably uphold the integrity of the NYPD. If you have an office for the highest ranking uniform member of service, the chief of department's office, you should probably not be a bunch of sexual deviants going out in public, pushing down on women, trading sex for overtime, using your thing as a casting couch, having sex in random public bathrooms with strangers or people known to you. And like these things should not be happening at work, on overtime, or off duty. I mean, like, this isn't hard, people. This isn't hard. Like, you know what I mean? And you want to talk about anti-police? Anti-police is defending this. Anti-God is defending this. Anti-morality is defending this. So for all you bums that are on here defending these actions and downplaying everything that's came out of this administration, you're honestly disgusting. You're disgusting individuals. Yeah, I mean, like, would you want this for your children? Would you want this type of environment for your kids? Would you want your children to work around these people? Would you want your wife to work around these people? Would you want your husband to work around these people? Do you want these people to enforce laws? Do you trust these people to be the one to determine whether you committed a crime? Do you believe them? I mean, look at who's been promoted. The majority of them are on the Brady list. They can't even testify. You have people at the highest ranks of this department that if something happens directly in front of them, that person's not going to go to jail because the people that observed it, the people that are speaking to the media, they can't even testify because they're not credible people. I mean, this is like it is. You guys got anything else on this before we get off it?
Well, I just want to point out that so if you do a search about this, apparently this has been going on for a couple of years at Penn Station. I see a Reddit thread about it over 2 years ago. So my question is, I wonder how really deep this one really goes, and then if there's any more people from 1PP involved in this. I have to wonder now just how long this behavior was actually going on over there, since this location was such a so prominent for doing for these lewd acts over there. There are multiple threads about it, by the way. So I don't think. Do you think this is the last we're going to hear about this incident?
That was my point, Marlon. Right? I was kind of being facetious that he's in the inspections unit, which should be aware of these locations. And if you look at history, Penn Station, Grand Central Station, things like that, have always been kind of targeted for like these meetups. I've heard about these before working the police department. You wouldn't expect it from someone within the NYPD, and especially with Penn Station, right? There's an actual sting going on, and I'm sure this is going on for a long time. That's why I said I don't think this is the first time this happened. I'm sure this is the first time he was caught. And are there other NYPD members involved? Some people might be saying, "Oh, is it the crime of the century?" Not necessarily, but is this the appearance we want for the NYPD? And some people talk about LGBTQ, and it has nothing to do with what type of sex it is. If it was a man or a woman, it'd be a problem. The point is, it's unprofessional. It's the location. It's dirty. It's disgusting. It's a bad appearance for the NYPD. We need to do better. And where does that come from? To do better, it comes from the leadership. It comes from accountability. That's what we need. Accountability, transparency. It comes from the leadership. The leadership is the ultimate failure, and all blame and all degrees of and levels of scandals and appearance of impropriety point right at the leadership. It shows this sergeant was just completely had no regard for any potential discipline on this job or getting caught. Clearly, just whatever fetishes he's involved in, that's none of our business. We don't care. The point is, it's unprofessional as an NYPD police officer. You want to do that at home or somewhere in a closed environment, fine. But you're doing that in the public, and you're doing that, it's a bad appearance. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and just FYI for all your haters in here, it appears that the sergeant's white, and by the name, I'm going to assume he's Irish. So, talking about, wouldn't it be a problem if it was the good old boy club? No, it's a problem because you guys, it doesn't matter that you guys are black. It doesn't matter that the chief of department's Irish either. What matters is you guys are a bunch of incompetent bums. That's what matters. That's the problem, is that you guys are in over your head. And it's clear as day. You can't even manage your own office, never mind run a police department. So, that's the problem. You can't even hold the same standard that you're trying to hold other people to. So that's the whole issue. And do I think this is the last we're going to hear about it? Listen, supposedly the whole incident was captured on body camera. Let's see if that body camera gets released. You know what I mean? Until that point, if we don't, we'll never hear about it again. It'll totally get swept under the rug. And if that body camera never gets released, that we'll never hear about it again. So in other news breaking out of New York City, Hochul endorses Zohran Mamdani. Donald Trump's going crazy. Now he wants to withhold federal funding from New York City. He doesn't care about the corruption in New York City. He doesn't care that Eric Adams refusing to reinstate and compensate the unvaccinated workers, even though we have numerous court rulings saying that he has to, and he's refusing to do so. He doesn't care about the billions of dollars that have went out of New York City illegally to not-for-profits, to friends of Eric Adams, to other things. And, none of that matters. What he cares about is that Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, who is a far left progressive, like her predecessor. I'm sorry, not her predecessor, like the person who came before her, Andrew Cuomo, like the person that he loves, Eric Adams, same politics. He's very upset that a Democrat has endorsed the Democrat nominee, Zohran Mamdani, for mayor. Not shocking to me at all. Again, if this was 2021, Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo both would have endorsed Zohran Mamdani. The only reason that they are against him right now is because they no longer run the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was pushing extremely far left since 2018. And now they got kicked out. They tried to keep up with the young socialists and they couldn't. Now they're out of the party and they're sitting there hanging on as pretend independents when in fact they're anything but that. They're Democrats. So I'm not shocked that Kathy Hochul is endorsing Zohran Mamdani. And if the Democrats actually want to win the election, that's what they're going to have to do, because what Donald Trump's not understanding is that, in fact, Andrew Cuomo nor Eric Adams have any shot at winning the seat of the mayor. The only person that has a shot is the guy. His name's Curtis Sliwa, and Donald Trump's bashing him because he likes cats. This is what we care about, Mr. President? This is what we care about? What kind of animal the guy likes? Yeah, I'm a dog guy myself. Is that a big deal? I have a dog. Is that, City Hall can't have cats. But City Hall, I guess, could have corruption. City Hall could have far left progressive who have demonized this New York City Police Department, who have demonized Republicans, who have demonized Christianity. We could have all those people in, but we can't have cats? Come on. Absolutely disgusting. And so, yeah, I'm not shocked at all. Everyone's going to get behind Zohran Mamdani, because the only people telling you that Cuomo or Adams has a shot is the same polls that told you that Zohran Mamdani had no shot to win the Democratic nominee. Right? So, I mean, they're all full of crap. The only person that could beat Zohran Mamdani, his name is Curtis Sliwa. If you guys want a difference in New York, you'll vote him. If you want New York to continue on the downward spiral that it's on, you'll vote whatever. One of the three far left progressive, one's more far left, one's more anti-Israel. That's it. Who cares? And let's face it. That's more the reason than anything that he's upset about it. Because we turned into the Israel first administration. No more America first.
Yeah, is it that, or is the possible loss of his the casino in the Bronx, the casino bid in the Bronx, the real answer? I don't think we'll ever know, but I find it pretty bizarre that a Republican president is doing all he can to avoid endorsing the Republican candidate for NYC mayor. So I think it might be a little bit unprecedented because I don't recall ever seeing an instant where, you know, where it's like they're doing all they can not to endorse Curtis Sliwa or get him into the mayor's office. Yeah,
cats. Corruption's good. Cats.
Yeah.
John, you can't have cat litter and cat litter.
Nah, but you could smoke. You could smoke weed and have you could smoke weed and have sexual rendezvous in City Hall in the bathrooms.
But no cat litter.
No cat litter.
Well, cat litter would have cleaned up the piss. That would have been a good thing.
Yeah. He could just burn incense in the basement of City Hall like they do currently, right? Right, Eric? Right.
Exactly.
Burn the incense so nobody smells it, right?
You know what's interesting? I think this is an election like we've never seen before, where there's so much interference and so many hands involved and special interest, and so many politicians have weighed in on this election because Mamdani has gotten so much name recognition throughout the entire country. I was amazed myself. I walked into an old crusty place to use the bathroom. It was a bar restaurant in Alaska, and I was traveling to another location, and there was a bunch of old guys at the bar. And I think I spoke about this before, and they're watching on TV on Fox News. They were talking about Mamdani. So, I mean, the whole country is fascinated with Mamdani. It's a household name right now. Curtis Sliwa is the man for the job. There's no time like right now. He's the man for the job right now. However, Curtis, with Kathy Hochul giving the endorsement to Mamdani, does that necessarily translate to votes? Not necessarily. But what it does translate to is because he's got a campaign that is, and John, you've said it before, you've never seen such amazing funding in a campaign like this. That's what this does. Kathy Hochul endorsing Mamdani gives him the opportunity to get more donors from and tap into other special interests that he might have not got before to get more donations. That's where donations equivalent to votes. So does it give him more credibility for Democrats in New York? Yes, on the entire state level, and especially people in the city right now saying, wow, Kathy Hochul is endorsing him, so that gives him even more credibility. So what we need now more than ever as we get close to the election is support for Curtis Sliwa. But it's not coming from the Republicans. It's not coming from where it should be. I mean, this is sad at this point. He's the man for the job, and especially in the dire straits that New York City is in right now. But this endorsement, I believe, causes a major problem because it is a gateway for him to get more donations from interest groups that he hasn't tapped into yet. That's where I see the problem.
Yeah, so there's a lot of maniacs in here today. I'm getting canceled 1,000 times. Banks 1804, all these weirdos in here. All right, guys, keep going. That's good. Remember,
the names are so
the more pressure, the higher it goes. Remember, I love the haters. Love your haters. The more they hate, the more you grow. That's a good thing for any of you guys experiencing hate out there, unwarranted hate. Just remember that. Love your haters. So RH says, LMO, laughing my ass off. Not shocking to me at all. This guy is clueless. He's talking about me. It's a pretty surprising endorsement. So I'm going to break this down for you because you people obviously don't understand politics whatsoever. So when you're the Democratic nominee, usually 99.9% of the times, the other Democrats will endorse you because you are the most likely to win the election and they support Democrats. When you're a Republican nominee, 99.9% of the times, Republicans will endorse you, right? They will come out because more than likely you're going to win. What's pretty surprising is we have a Republican president, supposedly, conservative president, supposedly, a president who doesn't believe in open borders, a president who doesn't believe in government corruption, a president who doesn't believe in DEI, a president who doesn't believe in being pro-criminal, a president who supposedly doesn't believe in being anti-cop, and who's he's endorsing? Somebody, a far-left progressive Democrat that's anti-cop, that's anti-common sense, pro-mandate, pro-open borders, and he's that's what's pretty surprising. It's pretty surprising that Republicans and supposed conservatives have now are getting up against a two candidates like an Andrew Cuomo or an Eric Adams who did everything to make their life miserable, who are the exact antithesis of everything they believed in and everything they said they voted against just a few months ago. So that's what's surprising. Kathy Hochul endorsing the Democratic nominee is what is actually expected. So I don't know. I know we've lost our way in America. I know like social media has corrupted and co-opted all your brains, but like that's the normal course of things. The not normal course of things is you being the Republican nominee and Republicans going and saying, no, I'm going to vote for the guy that actually destroyed my state and destroyed my city and did everything I claimed that I was against for the last 3.5 years. But now I'm going to say, okay, yeah, no, I'm going to vote for him now because of socialism. No, this is not normal. And Marlon, you're 100% right. This is the first time. This is unprecedented what's happening on the Trump end. On the Kathy Hochul end, this is exactly normal.
Yeah. And strictly from a checks and balances point of view, is this necessarily a bad thing? Because now actually Trump is going to, if this means that Trump is going to be actually scrutinizing New York City government and whoever's in City Hall, then strictly from a checks and balances point of view of government, right? This ain't a bad thing because this is what we thought we were getting when we voted for Trump. We thought Trump was going to scrutinize what Eric Adams did as a mayor and actually put some demands on his government, certainly of reversing course on the terrible policies he made during this pandemic, and putting the DOJ to actually investigate all his numerous corruption allegations. We thought we were getting that, right? Instead, what we got was a chummy relationship between Trump and the Eric Adams administration. So now if Mamdani coming in there, it means that Trump is going to withhold funds and actually make demands of city government, and actually more than likely the DOJ is probably going to be watching everything Mamdani does, then this might actually be a better government than certainly what we have under Eric Adams. I mean, I also want to point out again, for those of you who are saying, oh, Eric Mamdani's a communist, Eric Adams is a better choice for New York. Well, we've already pointed out numerous times on the show how Mamdani's policies are Eric Adams pre-MAGA policies. It's Eric Adams 1.0 with more money being thrown at it, okay? Because Mamdani, if you go through Mamdani's policy documents, it just amounts to pouring more money and renaming certain things, okay? So it's the same thing. So if Trump has if Trump's administration has a problem with Zoran because he's a communist, okay, then why don't they have a problem with Eric Adams? Because it's the same policies, okay? So again, strictly from a checks and balances point of view, and before some of you critics start calling us, oh, we're Mamdani supporters, we're not, okay? And I'm not supporting Mamdani. We all clearly believe that Curtis Sliwa is the best choice for New York City. The point I'm making here is that we expected checks and balances in government. We got a chummy relationship that doesn't benefit New York City residents and the Trump voters too. And what we might be headed for right now is the actual checks and balances that we thought we were getting maybe 9 months ago. So
I just want to say, I particularly love the hate. I love the haters. The haters make the podcast and the network grow even more. So to all the haters today, and you got a whole network working together, I really appreciate it. It's outstanding. Keep it going. Thank you so much. I actually, I think it's a blessing, right? Because one thing in life is true. No one's hating on you that's doing better than you. So for those that are hating on us, I wish you well. God bless you. I really appreciate the hate. The hate, you know what, just shows that we've actually have our finger on the pulse and we've been right and dead on accurate, spot on. So you both make valid points, outstanding points, by the way. I think to John's point, you're absolutely right. Hochul is going to support the Democratic frontrunner, which is Mamdani. And what do we know about that? If she supports Mamdani, she supports Cuomo and she supports Eric Adams. It's the same thing. But the fact that we don't see the same support, not just by Donald Trump, we've seen it completely by the whole Republican apparatus in New York City, that Curtis Sliwa is not getting the support that he needs. And if he did, there's no doubt in my mind that Curtis Sliwa would be your next mayor for New York City. There's no doubt about it. Now, Marlon, I think you brought up some outstanding points because we already know what Eric Adams' administration looks like. We know how Cuomo runs things at the top, being the governor of New York State. But we know, especially in New York City, what the NYPD looks like, what the other agencies look like, what the Eric Adams administration is full of. We know it's the same thing. It's a copycat version with Mamdani. So to your point, I think you brought up a great point because now we can say, we've seen this before, and now we can have more control over Mamdani. Now, before I get a lot of hate, I'm not saying I support Mamdani, but I sure as hell don't support Eric Adams. And I can tell you this, if you do get Mamdani, you get the same version of Eric Adams. However, maybe you'll get a cleaner version because I don't think, some people saying, oh my God, what's going to happen with the city? Could it get any worse than it is right now? Could there be nuances with the policies? Could the policies be ineffective? Yes. But could it be more corrupt than what we see right now? Could the appearance of impropriety be worse than what we see right now? I find it hard to believe. I think we've hit rock bottom with New York City politics, and this administration has completely curtailed the entire city. So you know what? If Mamdani is the same as Eric Adams, which I think we pointed out, maybe it would be a better version. But that, to me, should be more foundation. And this is the pinnacle moment right here where people need to jump on board and say, you know what? Right now, we need Curtis Sliwa. We need Curtis Sliwa for New York City because New York City is just in a sinkhole right now, and it's getting deeper and deeper. Can we get out of the conditions we are right now? I'm tired of hearing crime is down. Crime is out of control. Elderly have been attacked in New York City. Look at those two key locations I often talk about. The benchmark for crime. That's Times Square and Central Park. And look at those two locations. Out of control. And right now, Curtis Sliwa has a good relationship with the police department. Not the unions, because the unions supported Eric Adams. But Curtis Sliwa was the man for the job. This is just disappointing. It's sad right now. I don't understand what these Republicans are doing, John.
Yeah, and Craig CB on Facebook. Craig, if you want to get involved in the chat, I recommend going over to YouTube. It's a lot more active. Excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with my throat. But he says, I 100% agree that Curtis Sliwa is the best candidate in this race. But it's my understanding that he never supported President Trump, and I just don't understand that. So he has supported Trump. He has called Trump out, as we have called Trump out too. Again, 3-time Trump voter here. And I call out a lot of the bullshit that he does because I don't co-opt someone just because I voted for them. Just because I think that they're the best candidate, I vote for the best candidate that I want to hold accountable. I rode Joe Borelli, Republican city councilman, his whole entire term. Why? Because I expect him to do more for me than I expect for the left. I expect him to be better than them. I expect him to stand up to his words. I don't want to be gaslit. And so, so when people say that to me, it's like, oh, well, he didn't support Trump. Do we remember Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams a few months ago prior to this election? Does anyone remember them? They supported Trump. They wanted him in jail. They try to throw him in jail. They try to bankrupt him. They try to stop him from his ability to even do business in New York State or across New York City. They wanted to throw his kids in jail. I mean, does anyone remember? Like, it's and so, like, when they bring up, oh, he was critical of Trump. Wow. Who hasn't been? He was the president of the United States. If you're not critical of Trump, seek help. Seriously, seek help with you. Because no one on this earth is perfect. If you're not critical of the person in charge of this country, there is something wrong with you. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. If you're a Republican and there's a Republican president, you should be critical of him. If you're a Republican and there's a Democrat president, you should be critical of them. And the same goes all around. We should be holding our elected representatives feet to the fire. They should actually hold on to what they tell us they're going to do on the campaign trail. And when they don't, we should let them know about it. That is America, people. So, the thing that, Curtis Sliwa, he never did this, he never did it. All right. He's still 8 million times better than Curtis Sliwa, than Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams ever could be. Curtis Sliwa is, and when we talk about who could actually beat Mondani, if you're really afraid of socialism, then you would be voting for cats in City Hall. You would want litter boxes in City Hall instead of incense and weed smoke.
Yeah, it's this worshiping of politicians and idolatry, instead of he's a politician, he's, if you're supposed to criticize him, okay? Just because you voted on him doesn't mean you're supposed to go along with everything he does and not have criticisms of his administration. It doesn't work that way, I just don't understand this thinking that a lot of people are having, and so just to go back on the union's endorsements of Eric Adams, I just want to say that we when this first came up, we warned you guys, like, you're endorsing the 4th place candidate right now, and I think it's going to be a terrible look for them when Eric Adams. Now, there's rumors that Eric Adams is dropping out the sweep, but he's already in single digits, so odds are likely that he has no chance of winning this election anyway, which means I'm gonna lose my bet on poly markets.
I told you guys, he's not even polling, bro. Forget single digits. He's not even.
Me
polling.
too. I lost that bet.
Yeah. Well, no. Now my bet was that the outside forces were gonna compel him to win, and we did see though that those outside forces like Bill Aikman get involved. That they tried their best.
They convinced you guys.
Opinion.
I was convinced, dude. Eric Adams is the Norwegian rat, brother. You know what? I'll never bet against Eric Adams.
I won't bet him out here, but I said the same thing. I said I won't bet him out. I'll never bet him out because I would have. I mean, he should be sitting in jail right now, so he's not. So I'm not like I'm not. I can't go against the guy.
He's the Iceman, brother. He really is. Honestly, like if you were gonna bet on somebody, like I'd bet on that guy. Well, I'm gonna try to cut off your throat. I mean,
no. That's pretty much it. I was just gonna say that how silly the unions are gonna look. That having this whole coalition that my union president Scott Monroe did, Scott, that was totally like ridiculous, and you're gonna look pretty silly when Eric Adams either loses by a lot, landslide, or has to bow out right now. This looks terrible. It's just a bad look for you, And if I was if anybody decides to run against you, I would definitely use that, because after how long have we been here telling you about the problems of this administration? You've seen it yourself, and my situation, and John's and Eric's and even Sal's, all our situation, and yet you still go on to get behind the 4th place candidate who looked like he was going to lose from the get-go. So that's all I got to say about that.
You know what though? At this point, honestly, this election is so chaotic and so discombobulated that I think we need to just completely remove party thoughts at this point and just say to yourselves, look at the people that are in this election. If you had a store right now, if you had a store and you sold goods, small mom and pop shop, let's say you sold hardware, would you want any of these guys to manage your location? Just think about it. Would you want Cuomo? That guy already screwed everything up. You don't want him in there. Would you want Eric Adams managing your store? Everything would go out the back door. Would you want right? Would you want
comes in the front, we sell it out the back for half the price.
Donnie's going to give everything away for free. I mean, think about this. You got a mom and pop store right now. Mom Donnie's giving away for free, right? Eric Adams taking the stuff out the back door, and Cuomo's locking you in because of COVID. I mean, it's very simple. Curtis Sliwa is the man right now. Has he made mistakes in his life? Yeah. Yes, we all do. You know, people brought up to me different mistakes that Curtis Sliwa has made throughout his life. I said, okay, who hasn't? I made many mistakes in my life. If anyone, you know, is perfect, you know, I question who you are also. If you say that you're perfect, you're living a lie. We all make mistakes. It's how do you come back from that? How do you learn from it? And how do you better yourself? We all make mistakes. Mistakes are steps to success, right? Your failures in life are steps to success. And Curtis Sliwa, to me, he's never lost a fight in his life because every time he got knocked down, he got back up and he's doing better. And that's what we should ask. That's someone we need for New York City at this point. I think it's pretty simple. Let's put aside politics. Let's put aside party lines, and let's just go to common sense. Think about it. You have a store. Who would you want? Forget about a store. Your own house. Your own house. If you went on vacation, you need someone to watch your dog. Would you want Eric Adams to watch your dog? Would you want Cuomo, Mom Donnie? I mean, think about it.
I'm disinfecting that couch if Eric Adams. I'm disinfecting that couch. I'm throwing it out. I forget the disinfect. I'm throwing it out.
He's vegan. It'll be all right.
I'm throwing it out, bro. You know, it's beyond repair at that point. But you know, like, dude, like America has this belief that there are perfect people in the world, and the only perfect people in the world are in elected office. And it's so, and what we've actually seen, what the reality of is, the people that are in elected office are so much worse than us all. They're the furthest thing from perfect. They're the furthest thing from normal. They're the furthest thing from legitimate, you know, and it boggles my mind, you know, it boggles my mind. Amanda Estevez, I think it's the last thing on Sliwa. Amanda Estevez brings up a great point. She says, I want to believe Trump doesn't want to put the stamp on Sliwa, maybe to prevent backfire. Just a theory, better on Adams than on the GOP candidate. So there's a couple of things there, because one, you do know that we all know. I mean, listen, Trump, although he did well in the presidential election, he did better in New York than in recent years than any Republican has. He's still not like you don't want to be Trump endorsed candidate in New York. You're more than likely not going to help you win an election. It might actually have a negative effect on your campaign. However, like Trump's words are swaying his big money donors towards these far left progressives instead of going into the pockets of Curtis Sliwa. But to be fair, Curtis Sliwa has raised a lot of money from small donations sourced from New York City residents. So Curtis Sliwa was actually doing very well in the fundraising from New York City residents. He would be doing better if we could get, you know, the MAGA bros, Bill Ackman and all these other guys to start getting their big money and those big money donations behind Sliwa as well. You know, it does take money. It takes a lot of money to become the mayor of New York City, but Sliwa has done well. So, I mean, does Sliwa technically want to be endorsed by Donald Trump? No. But what Trump is doing is actually harming Sliwa's campaign, and it's bolstering lies that Cuomo or Adams could win when in fact they couldn't. That whole time when everybody was like, is Eric Adams the only one that could beat Mondani? It defied common sense, right? I'm like, how could he possibly? He has no base. He couldn't win the Republican primary. He couldn't win the Democratic primary. But what they did with all that money, that big Trump money, is they had everyone thinking and saying Eric Adams is going to win. Eric Adams is the only one that could beat Mondani. Eric Adams, because that's the power and the effect of the media and the social media. And you had all these conservative bros on Twitter and all else. Eric Adams, the only one that could beat. They don't know. They never debated any of us. You know, Charlie Kirk, all of them. They never would debate any of us because we knew the reality of it. I went on a very big space, and I think they thought they were going to beat me up. All the conservative bros were on there, and they invited me to talk about why I was saying that Eric Adams can't win. And after I said why he can't win, nobody had a question for me. There were thousands of people on the space because that wasn't the narrative they wanted. They're like, all right, thanks for coming, John. You know, and so like nobody wanted to debate it anymore because the fact was he didn't win the Republican nominee. He couldn't win the Democratic primary. He would have came in fifth. How the hell, where's his base stemming from? And that was like kind of the conversation that Eric, Marlon, and myself were having. And that's what they were saying is like that big money is going to infect people's mind big enough where actually Eric Adams could potentially get a base. But why I was saying is because although people have a short memory, when you start to throw things out there and show these people who they really are, they're like, oh, I totally forgot that Eric Adams medical raped me and fired me from my career and forced my kids to be vaccinated and forced shots down their body. Oh yeah, and I have myocarditis now because of Eric Adams. And like once you start showing people the reality of who these people are, then they're like, oh. And the same is true with Governor Cuomo. I mean, are we going to forget that he pulled his own mother out of a nursing home, but locked your parents in nursing homes? That you couldn't go to funerals, you couldn't go see your parents' funeral. You couldn't go see your sick parents, your businesses. You lost your business. Are you going to forget that? You're going to forget that he lost businesses, that he was telling you how many people you could have in your house. Do you remember that? Does people forget that? And then Eric Adams comes along, and for a year,
short-term memories.
He held on to those things way past the entire world. Eric Adams was the king of COVID. And people have like a short-term memory. And I'm still traumatized from that time period. Like I am. I was with a bunch of New Yorkers this weekend. We were making sauce. We got 400 pounds of tomatoes. We were making sauce. Florida people were in shock. They were like, what the hell's going on here? Call the cops, and and we jarred up all this sauce. And I'm like, and then of course the conversation comes up because why are we all there? Why are we all in Florida? Because of Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams, mainly because of Eric Adams. And nobody wants to remember that fact. It's like our whole, like I have hundreds of New Yorkers that live here as a result of Eric Adams, right in my neighborhood. I'm not talking about across Florida. I'm talking about in my neighborhood. I'm talking about people I grew up with, people I worked in the police department with, people my kids went to school with, people I just know from out of life. And everyone wants to forget that. It's like, you don't think that totally affected New York City and the makeup of New York City when you had lifelong New York City residents forced out of their careers, forced out of their homes, and everyone's like, hey, you should vote for that guy again because, he's better than a socialist. It's like, no, I think he's a socialist. Marlon, you're going to get it today, bro. This is three.
Well, I think that's 3 times already.
Right?
3 strikes, bro.
Yeah, John, if you could put that comment back up there again. The last one.
Which one? Amanda?
Yeah. I want to believe. Yeah, I just want to point out, based on her argument, that it kind of sounds like she's saying that Trump doesn't want to get behind Sliwa because he may lose. And if that's the case, are we forgetting about all the other Trump-backed candidates that have lost throughout the years? We had Carrie Lake, we had Herschel Walker, we had Doug Master Antonio, and Dr. Oz. So I just don't understand that argument at all. It's not it's not that Trump has gotten behind candidates in the past that have lost. That's because he doesn't want them to lose. That's kind of, I just don't understand that argument. I mean, people, you got to look at things as they are, and this whole 5D chess, this whole filling in the blanks yourself and making assumptions. I think the time is kind of gone for that, and that you really have to look at what you see before you and judge things as they are right now. Because I think the time for simply trusting the plan and trusting judgment, I don't necessarily think we're in the I think that time frame is kind of past, and we have too much problems that need to be addressed in this country for us to do that anymore. And it's time to put that it's time that we criticize him where his policies are a failure, and to praise him where they're actually beneficial to the public. And supporting candidate and not getting behind a guy who most Republicans in New York City at this point believe is the guy that should be in City Hall is not getting behind him is a problem.
I got one simple question. Just think about this, right? And I think that most people should just ask this question. What would New York City look like if Mamdani does win? The way things are going right now. Let's say, for instance, the better guy doesn't get in office and Mamdani wins. What does New York City look like in comparison to what it looks like now? Does it look worse? Does it get better? Does it remain the same? Now, I don't necessarily think it would get worse. Some people are saying, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily think it would get better. But some people are saying it will get worse. The question is, how much worse could it get? Because it's pretty bad right now. Crime is out of control. Don't tell me crime is down. Where elderly men and women, especially elderly women, are being attacked. Women in general are being attacked. Crime is out of control. We have shootings. I mean, the Bronx is imploding. The Bronx, if we just took the stats alone and the Bronx was not part of New York City stats, it would not be the safest, biggest city. Not at all. The Bronx is out of control. So what are we looking at right now? And that's my question. Under Mamdani, if he is the mayor, does the city get worse? Does the city get better? Or does it remain the same? And can it get any worse? And some people say, well, it's going to get worse. How much worse can it get when we have an administration that we can't trust? Because to me, corruption is a major problem. We should want an administration that is free from corruption, that has integrity, someone or some administration that we can trust. We can't trust this administration. To me, I don't think it gets any worse because crime is already out of control. The living conditions in New York City are uninhabitable in comparison to what they were before. Eric Adams has taken this thing off the cliff. And I just think that it can't get any worse. To me, having a corrupt administration and just the amount of appearance of impropriety is enough. How much worse could it get?
So I think to be fair, I think 100% any other candidate, crime's going to get worse because, well, the perception of crime is going to get worse. The reality of crime isn't really going to get much worse because crime is really bad. And crime, and again, like I said, regardless if you're voting Mamdani, you're voting Cuomo, you're voting Adams, regardless any of these guys become the mayor, if anybody else other than Curtis Sliwa becomes the mayor, crime in New York City will continue to rise. So I think crime is going to continue to get worse unless we shift the direction. So I do think crime will get worse. What will be significantly different is the perception of crime, because crime will actually get reported, right? Like where it's not being reported now, unless we could keep Jessica Tisch as the police commissioner, who seems to have a large control over the New York City media. And then maybe the perception of crime will stay at normal levels. You know, unlike the Finest Unfiltered, we will continue to report crime regardless of who the police commissioner is and continue to report the reality of it is, because we're not grifting as if someone here would claim. And you could just look at our filings. We don't make any money. So, we spend way more money than we ever made. So, so I mean, you could just look at that. So, but like when let's just talk about felony assaults. Let's talk about felony assaults. 2010 levels, right? So this is prior to Bill de Blasio. This is 15 years ago. 2010 levels to today, right? Reza Chowdhury just breaks this out. The Bronx felony assault is up 95%. Brooklyn South felony assault up 55%. Now, mind you, this is violent felony assault. Assault with knives, assault with weapons, assault with firearm. So what do you think that means for grand larcenies? What do you think that means for robberies? What do you think that means for burglaries? If felony assault is up, everything's up. Hate crimes are up, everything's up. Don't believe the hype, people. Crime's up, right? Brooklyn North, 31%. Manhattan South, 92%. Manhattan North, 46%. Queens South, 74%. Queens North, 89%. And for you conservatives, you conservative Republicans on Staten Island, let me bring you back to 2010 in Staten Island. Let me bring you back to a time when there wasn't homeless everywhere, and there wasn't empty stores everywhere, and there wasn't graffiti everywhere, and there were actually cops driving around your borough. Let me bring you back to that time. Since that time, felony assault has risen 109.7%. So the perception is crime's down. The reality is crime's up double what it was since before we had the last two communist mayors. So, yeah, will crime continue to rise under a third communist mayor? Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Yeah. And, you brought this up previously, John, that whoever gets that ship, whoever writes the ship, right? Whoever gets into the mayor's office, he can't just overnight change those stats, right? And in fact, if that person wants to bring further transparency to the office and wants to actually clear up things, there might be even a spike in crime because, like you said, those numbers will actually be getting reported instead of being shit canned like they are now. So whoever gets in office, especially if he plans to do a good job, you might see an immediate spike up there. But not only will a perception change, again, not overnight, but the perception of competent leadership would change. It may take some time, but I'm agreeing with that statement 100%, and I think that is what's more than likely to happen, especially if Curtis were to come in and want to actually right the ship.
Yeah, that was oh, sorry, I didn't know you were going. Sorry.
No, I just want to say one thing that is true, and I think that Eric Adams in this administration, and we've seen as the tenure as mayor, has had control of the media. The media has been completely under siege under Eric Adams' administration, and he's pretty much other than Katie and a few other reporters, he's pretty much gotten away with everything and been able to slip from real scrutiny. And even with this corrupt administration and the appearance of impropriety, and that's why I say Eric Adams is the Norwegian rat. They've allowed him to deflect. They've put out puff pieces to deflect from what's going on. Now, with Mamdani, if Mamdani does win, I think it would be much different. And I think that we'll see kind of a reflection of what we had with former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's a terrible act also, but far more scrutiny and far more pressure from the media. And I do believe that we'll see that comparison. And I think immediately what you're going to see is, if he's the mayor, an onslaught of, wow, look, crime is out of control. The conditions in New York City and your mayor is just a complete mess, because the media is going to put a lot more pressure. They're a lot more comfortable putting pressure on Mamdani, and you see it already in comparison to Eric Adams. There is the complete dichotomy, and that's why we'll see an initial impact, and it will give the appearance that the city is just completely over the edge. And I think it's over the edge already. And sometimes things do have to get worse before they get better. In most cases, they have to. Is Mamdani the man to make it better? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And will it get worse? In some aspects, yes. I do believe for the NYPD. Maybe not as a whole. Maybe not with corruption. It might be a little more tight-lipped and maybe far more disciplined. Morale-wise, yes. And the how policing is implemented, it may change the role of a police officer. But I think that Mamdani is going to get a lot more pressure. Again, it just shows you Curtis Sliwa is the man for the job. And even with Curtis Sliwa, do I think he could change it around completely? No. I think there's so much damage right now with this perception control and this narrative that they've done, and the way the media was seized throughout this administration, the amount of corruption, the amount of scandals that we've seen come out. I think it's going to take decades to repair. It's not going to be an immediate fix. This is going to be in slow strides.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they have to deal with the budget problems too, where they're finding the money to do all this. So
yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point too. Like, and FYI, Cop Watch is asking, which one of them would we leave our kids with? I'm not leaving my kids with anybody. So, someone asked me that about Biden and Trump. They're like, who would you rather leave your kids with? I'm like, neither of them. I was like, I wouldn't even leave my kids with my own father. He's 72, absent-minded. He'd go out, ride his motorcycle, forget my kids were there. Like, I'm not leaving my kids with any of them. Like, what are you talking about? Like, none. None. Especially, again, like I said, the politicians, what they've proven to us, they're the worst of us. So they're definitely not. Cop watch, you got a better chance. You got a better chance of watching my kids than an elected official. But but that was one thing. Like when I was contemplating like the run for mayor, that was the one thing I said that was going to be part of my campaign, right? Crime is going to go up because you're going to actually know what crime is. We're going to actually take reports and then fight that crime. We're going to take crimes. We're going to take criminal patterns. Crime's going to rise significantly because it's actually the crime that's occurring. Unlike what's happening now, where we're just downplaying reports and telling cops and beating cops to lie and misrepresent things. So that's what's happening now. And again, nothing has been fixed to improve the life of the NYPD. Nothing has been fixed to bring the truth back into crime reporting. Nothing has been improved to bring back integrity and truth as it relates to police and community relationships. It's still just as bad as it was in 2020. And nobody wants to admit that. The relationship between the New York City Police Department and the CCRB, again, I don't believe the CCRB is a organization that's grounded in truth. To me, they appear to be a self-serving organization, an organization looking to grow, an organization looking to survive, an organization looking to get money. And to do that, they need to find cops guilty of things at times when they're not. So this has recently came out. We had done a podcast about this a while back. So this is the body camera of the death of Win Rosario. CCRB has recently found the officers involved guilty of excessive force, and they are asking for these officers to be terminated. Final say does go to the police commissioner. So this is Officer Alonji's body camera from that day. Let's just play that body camera real quick, and then let's get your thoughts on it.
What's up, man? Did you call? Brother did? Yeah. On who?
Himself.
Called on himself? What's going on with him?
He's having an episode.
What kind of episode?
Like,
Is he a bipolar schizo? Like,
nah, like, he just,
what kind of episodes? Yeah.
so, basically, like, he was just going crazy. Like, he don't even know what he's doing, to be honest. Like, you guys
How old's your brother?
He's 19.
How old are you?
I'm 17.
Where's your dad?
He's not home. He's at work.
So who did I speak to on the phone?
I think it was my mom.
No, I spoke to a guy.
That was my brother.
He called on himself?
Yeah. So that's what I'm
what
saying.
else?
I don't think so.
High on drugs?
I don't believe so.
Is he diagnosed with anything?
I'm not sure.
All right. Oh, you told him second floor? Hello. What's up, pal?
আমরা তো মনে করছি সে ভালোই হয়ে গেছে কিন্তু কেন তো সে আবার এরকম করতেছে
Anybody else in the house? No.
আচ্ছা ওই
Yo, yo. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So, all right. Oop. Sorry, fellas, I messed this one up. Well, all right. So, what would you guys think about that whole incident? Eric, what'd you think?
Well, he's worried your mic's not going to work.
Oh, sorry. Was it Marlon's turn? I apologize.
No. But first of all-
Go Eric, because Eric,
No.
because I think it's even more appropriate that Eric speak on this first, considering what they did to him and his career.
No, thank you. Yeah, listen, the CCRB is an organization that's just full of complete disdain and bias for policing, and it's partly because, yes, they need more funding, so they need to justify their existence and their ability to grow, which is why they try to get themselves in more aspects of policing. And really take part in stuff that they have no business. Their investigators are just not trained for, and they don't have the understanding. But partly, it's also because it's comprised of people that have a legitimate disdain for policing, and this is a challenge and a confrontation they get with the police department or any law enforcement agency, particularly with the NYPD, because a good majority of the CCRB panel, the personnel, the investigators, are not even from New York. They just have a complete disdain for policing. They've had a desire to live in New York City, and it's a great stepping stone to move on in their careers because CCRB pays, little to nothing, but they go there to get experience, doing investigations with the police department, get a good exposure and insight, and they have a complete disdain for policing. So a lot of them look on to further careers with anti-police, and then there's a lot of anti-police rhetoric. These investigations are just a complete failure by the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The investigations are intended to find guilt and not play out as what they mean. Now, when you look at a case like this, watching this body camera, my heart is pounding and beating already. I'm not even involved in it because I know the danger factors that are there for those police officers. There are some tactical failures there, but let's not get into that right now. I want to talk about what is going on with CCRB and their purview and their appearance of this. Those police officers are already put in a vulnerable position as they have to go upstairs to challenge this emotionally disturbed person, and they're getting little to no information from the family. The family hasn't given them much information, so they're led in the dark. And immediately on sight of that emotionally disturbed person, he evades them and goes into the kitchen. That's a problem. That's an immediate problem, and starts charging towards them. They're left in a position to take action and to protect themselves. The problem with CCRB, again, is little to understanding of police work and understanding those tactical factors that put you in such a vulnerable position, being in those small quarters. Not only do those police officers have to protect themselves, but they have to protect the family members, especially inside that kitchen. And you start to get to those small areas. And the fact that he already took off from them and he's wearing a hoodie and thinks that they can't see, that is a terrible position to be put in. And again, the Civilian Complaint Review Board gets involved, and they have purview that they should not be taking part of at all. That should be for the Internal Affairs Bureau and the DA's office. That's it. As far as Civilian Complaint Review Board, I don't think it's just too much. It's too much oversight, and we see it time and time again, where the DA's office and the police department finds the police officers acting appropriately, clears them of any problems, and they are found not guilty, and their work is justified. They acted within the scope of their employment. Again, how is this excessive? We're talking about the mentally, emotionally disturbed person here who's in possession of a knife. He's in possession of a knife, and a knife within 20 feet or even more than 20 feet. But the average person, untrained person within 20 feet can be extremely deadly with a knife. It's ironic. We had a great discussion the other day with the Finest Unfiltered, with discussion stuff for the network. And we talked about the dangers. And I've said it before. Here, Crow Eater says excessive force. He had a knife. I would much rather, and I wouldn't want to be involved in anything, but I would, in close quarters, I'd rather be confronted with someone that has a firearm than a knife. Because I can tell you right now, I've done studies in the Marine Corps and training. If you're wrestling or rolling around with someone with a knife, I don't care how good your training is, you are still going to get cut. With a gun, it's dangerous. Potentially you could lose your life, yes. But there is a slim chance you can get your hand on the barrel of that firearm and knock that out of battery and save your life. But with a knife, it's extremely close, it's dangerous, and it's scary. So for the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and most of these investigators look like they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. One of the investigators that interviewed me on one of my last cases had purple hair and painted nails, and this person is trying to tell me how to operate in life. Really? Most of these Civilian Complaint Review Board investigators would never put themselves in a situation like that. And yet they put so much emphasis and knock police officers that put themselves. That, to me, that's a scenario. And I would tell my cops, when you're in a situation like that, every time you're in a situation like that, that is the last day of your life. And yet the Civilian Complaint Review Board is asking for the termination. It's time that we terminate the Civilian Complaint Review Board.
Yeah. Yeah, Eric took the words out of my mouth that the agency is, trying to justify its existence, and trying to justify its budget by like unofficially expanding its oversight reach on the NYPD. And the further proof in that is that they, according to Pat Hendry, the union president for the PBA, the board overruled its own investigators on this case. So they if we needed further proof that they have an agenda over there, and that I don't think there's a more clearer one than in this instance. I also want to point out that the CCRB's budget since 2022, at least, it's down by $3 million. Okay. And they asked for a 25 million budget, but instead they got $22 million. So again, I think we have an agency here that's trying to justify its existence and trying to justify its budget in the face of the budget cuts that we've talked about on here. And the city itself, I pointed out that the city itself says they have a budget hole in their own financial statements. That budget gap is $6 billion. So I think that those cuts we're seeing at CCRB aren't the only ones that are going to be coming in as we move on, especially as we move on towards 2027, where there's a massive debt wall for the entire country approaching. But I also think in this instance, that agenda is also part of the progressives' agenda to find to kind of create an atmosphere that's conducive to more BLM style protests, and to give like the progressives, to give them a campaign, a cause to campaign on, and I'm pointing this out because I also read an article from the New York Times this morning that it sounded a lot more like advocacy than it did as unbiased journalism. So what I think is happening here is not only is that agency trying to justify itself, but being filled with tons of progressives who, by the way, make a lot of money, including the director who makes $200K a year. Now, I being an agency full of progressives, I think what they're also trying to do is trying to create a campaign issue for Democrats and to rile up that the annual protests and BLM style social cause to rally their base around.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, dude. I like the 100% that they're looking to survive. That's without a doubt. But when I'm watching this video, yeah, I mean, one, if you're a police officer, I mean, 101, I don't know if they still train anything in the academy anymore. It appears they don't. But and I'm not knocking because this happened so quickly, but this is why you keep people out of the kitchen and away from weapons. It's like it's imperative when you go on a family job or you go in someone's home, you go in a tight location, you don't give them access to weapons. The kitchen is where someone's going to go to get a knife. In this case, male goes and gets a scissor, right? And what does he do? He takes the scissor out of the drawer and he charges the police officer. Now, I've said time and time again, don't take a taser to a knife fight because you're getting stabbed. I'm meeting deadly physical force with deadly physical force. I'm not meeting deadly physical force with a piece of flimsy equipment that barely ever works. Sorry. So, for those of you that are criticizing these officers, I don't know what they've done. I don't know what the CCRB is asking should have had, what they should have done differently. Again, should they have been stabbed? Should they have allowed the person to get on top of them with the knife and start stabbing them? I'm not understanding what happened here. Again, this is the reality of doing police work. People who are experiencing mental illness will act violently a lot of times towards the police. And I think this is something, and this is a learning lesson for family members too, right? If you're going to call 911 on your kids, Make sure that they're not going to have access to weapons. Keep them out of the house. Maybe have the husband home or have the brother keep him out of the kitchen, and then have the cops, so that he's unarmed. The cops could wrestle him without having to use deadly physical force, without being presented with deadly physical force. And this way they won't meet deadly physical force. I watched this video. We talked about it when it happened. I'm going to just say it one more time for you people. I've had a lot of mental illness in my family, and I wouldn't expect the cops to have acted any differently here. I don't know what they could have done differently other than keep him out of the kitchen right from the get-go. But again, this was a very fast-paced moving video where that kid went right into the kitchen, went right into the drawer. And as soon as he went for that drawer, if you guys didn't see it, that's why Eric's saying that his heart's racing, because we both thinking the same thing. Oh my God, he's going to get a knife. Right. And that's the reality of it. And so for CCRB to make a determination that these officers should be fired, it's not grounded in truth. It's not grounded in reality. And anyone sitting here saying this should have went differently, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, nor would you ever put yourself in that situation. And I guarantee you, you would never sign up to be a New York City police officer, because this is what you're going to face with. And if you think you wouldn't have shot this kid, then guess what? I guarantee you, you will not. This would have been your last day walking on earth.
You know what's sad? I'm going to say the hard truth. We shoot people that need to be shot. Now, what does that mean? That means that we deploy our firearms when necessary to protect the lives of others and police officers. And the lives of that family and the lives of those police officers were at risk and imminent threat. And we shoot people that need to be shot. Not with a taser, with a firearm to save lives. That's what that firearm is for. And I was asked in a CCRB investigation, I'm sorry. Let me even retract from that. I was so surprised by the response. The CCRB investigator said it was a forced case where we were wrestling with a perpetrator that was wanted for a shooting and who was in possession of a firearm. The firearm fell out, and we were fighting over this firearm. And I punched and deployed numerous punches to the perpetrator repeatedly to get him to stop. And the investigator said, "Do we shoot to kill?" When and we said even the whole thing stops. So what are you talking about? No, we shoot to stop a threat. We deploy punches to stop a threat. When that threat stops, we stop using force. That's what the public doesn't understand. Active and retired police officers know exactly what we're talking about. But force is applied to save lives and to stop that threat, not to render someone unconscious, not to kill someone. Absolutely not. But we shoot people that need to be shot. And that's the reality. Is it violent? Yes. Sometimes that violence has to be met with violence. Now, John, I get what you're saying. Sometimes, unfortunately, the layout of apartments or houses makes it pretty much virtually impossible to contain someone and not allow them access to the kitchen. And you see the layout. The cops were already in a vulnerable and disadvantaged position. Anytime you have to walk upstairs. And that's why I always give credit to police officers that work in some of these areas where there are large homes, because when you go into someone's house, that's their domain, and they know all the nuances in the locations that they can get to that you can't. So that was kind of tough. The police officer had to go upstairs, and immediately that family member had access, and he was already in the kitchen and ran back into it. They had little information, not much support from the family. I agree with you, John. That would help to get support from the family, but they weren't getting much. You could see clearly that the family was scared. And they obviously are dealing with this family member often. And unfortunately, yes, someone that's mentally ill can be violent. And it's too late for the police officers to be social workers at this point. I think Crow Eater said it before. Crow Eater, I think, said, should have had their social workers show up and CCRB workers. I'm sure it would have been a different outcome. I don't care how much training you have. I've trained my entire life. I don't care if you're Henzo Gracie. And I love Henzo. If you're faced with someone with a knife, you're in a bad position. You're in a bad spot. And you need that firearm and you need distance. So the fact that they want these police officers terminated, we should be asking, what type of people want New York City police officers fired for saving the lives of that family and saving their own lives? That's the question we need to ask.
Yeah, I think they just think, do they think that cops' lives are expendable, you know? because I mean, what do they expect the cops to do in a situation like that? And we've heard talk of Zohan wanting to expand mental health outreach services and to create this whole department of community safety, I think, and have civilians and health workers respond to cases like this. Now, can you imagine what's going to happen in an instance like this with a civilian responding to that? Yeah, and they actually think that is the solution to this. So I think the I'm going to jump ahead and say that I think there's a couple elephants in this room, but one of them is the medication history of this kid. Now, just doing my research for this episode, I look back at all the other cases that have come up, like Kowalski Trewick and Raul de la Cruz and Deborah Danner. All these instances of emotionally disturbed people that had to be shot by cops responding. They had to they had to deploy deadly physical force. And the one thing that keeps coming up in all these cases is these people had they had psychological issues, and mental issues, but they also have a history of medication. And I think this is one elephant that's in the room, and it really bothers me that city governments aren't, that government in general is just not looking at this. I mean, we can pour as much money as we want into civilian responses and mental health outreach, but we have to attack the problem on multiple angles. And I don't think any effort to have civilians respond, just solely have civilians respond to this, is going to solve the problem. We need I think long term, government really has to look at this and ask themselves why we have more incidents like this than we ever did in the past, and why these incidents seem to be steadily increasing as time goes on. I think the government needs to do that if we're going to find a real answer to this, because I just don't see how else we're going to solve this problem.
I just want to jump in for a second, John, before you wrap up this part of the segment. I think it's what's interesting, and I've tried to explain it to CCRB numerous times. What they don't understand, I think that most of the public doesn't understand also. Keyword that Marlon just said, deadly physical force. Does that mean that the police officer's intention is to shoot them dead? The answer is no. What that means by deadly physical force is that you're using a tool. That's what police officers do. That firearm is a tool to stop a threat, and the byproduct could and most likely turn out to be deadly. But the goal of the police officers is not to shoot someone dead. It's to stop and to save the lives of that family and the police officers themselves. And just look at that, of how difficult that is. Those police officers are put in a position where they're completely blinded and put in the dark. They're aware that there's someone emotionally disturbed there. They don't know exactly where in the house that is. They don't know what he looks like. They're trying to ascertain information. And the family is not being very supportive and helpful to those police officers. You heard numerous times, I don't know. And that's what a police officer is faced every day. And that's why I say it's the last day of life. Those police officers are walking upstairs. Who's at the advantage? Brother Rob over here said, finest unfiltered family. Rob Lukash said, some of these apartments have wraparounds, and it's the tenants or residents that have the advantage. The police officers, anytime you walk into someone's home, their apartment, you are at such a disadvantage. They know the layout and nomenclature of that apartment. You don't. So the ultimate goal is to contain them and put them in a position where they do not have access to weapons, and anything could be a weapon. But the bottom line is, once those police officers entered that domain, which is that house, they were at a significant disadvantaged. And the fact that the Civilian Complaint Review Board is asking for the termination just shows the weaknesses on the leadership of any administration, especially this one in the upper echelon of the NYPD. They should be screaming and yelling. And number one, who should be screaming and yelling and saying, we'll take our police officers out of the street, is the unions. Because this is absolutely ridiculous. Those police officers should be commended, not condemned. Not condemned. Not condemned. It's just really sad. And John, I know you felt it. My heart is beating for those police officers that they're being condemned for having to save their own lives and to save the lives of that family.
No, it's just a sad state of reality and policing. So when people are like, oh, it's going to get worse. Imagine if Mondani's the mayor. It seems like he's the mayor right now. I mean, Eric Adams not in charge of the CCRB. Eric Adams wasn't a cop. Well, excuse me. Eric Adams didn't collect a paycheck from the NYPD. Yeah, like he did, and so it's ridiculous. So another thing that's happening across the country, thousands of people are being fired for use of their free speech. However, disgusting. Cheering on the death of a nonviolent man assassination, right? We showed you what the mayor staffer did. He put out this meme. He reshared this meme that said, and he said, thanks to Juan, you hit the nail right on the head, or should I say racist, basically cheered on Charlie Kirk's death, called him a racist. He said, the meme said, Charlie Kirk spent his entire life disparaging immigrants, disrespecting women, and blaming black folks, only to get shot in one of the whitest places on earth. Now, again, this should come, anybody that knows Eric Adams, this should come as no shocker for you, because he has the most racialized administration of any mayor in New York City history. Right. And so here's his friend and former staffer, Tony Herbert, who I posted where I titled it, New York City Mayor Eric Adams staffer says Charlie Kirk's assassination is karma coming to collect. He is Tony Herbert. He was fired within hours of me posting this. Daily News put an article out, did not mention anything about where this information came from. City put an article out and said how the whole thing transpired. So there's two articles, and there's an article from the Gothamist who also did not put out how this whole thing transpired. They pretend like it's an exclusive, the Daily News or the Gothamist. It's like, no, you got the information just where the Daily News, the New York Post, Fox News, and everyone else gets their news for the NYPD of New York City crime or anything related to corruption and politics surrounding public safety. They'll find it's unfiltered. That's where you get it from. So here's Tony Herbert.
Good morning. I just want to address a post that I put up with regards to the unfortunate shooting of a human being in the likes of the conservative individual, Mr. Kirk. But I also want to be very clear about something. It also helped me to identify the racists that are on my page. So I'm happy and I do not regret posting what I posted, because it helped me to identify the racists that were sitting on my page who I thought were about, equality and all that other good stuff. So I'm not going to make any excuses with regards to the fact of my comment. I shared a clip from somebody else with regards to an individual who, for the most part, created to helped his own demise. When you go out there and you talk about people and you talk about, and you become a racist and you try to disguise that like you're doing something for humanity, that's a problem. And unfortunately, karma has come to collect. With that being said, thank you very much. I've been able to delete at least 2 people thus far, and who I find to be extreme racists that live here in our city and supports racism, but just undercover with it. So, yeah, I don't regret that at all. And this message is to you. Thank you for for allowing me to identify your stupidity.
So Tony Herbert was a result of it. And if you called him out for cheering on the assassination of a nonviolent man, you are a racist. You got that?
Yeah. I've spoken about it before, but there's a group of people who feed off of taxpayer money and don't really do anything for the people that they're supposed to, in their role in government. And anytime you criticize them, it always comes back to racism, even though they're not helping out the people that they claim to be helping out. They're just there to collect what amounts to like a no-show job, in this case, what exactly did Tony Herbert do in government? Well, his role as I still don't understand it. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, he was out there in front of Rikers Island protesting, and I don't understand what does that have to do with his role as a NYCHA liaison, But whenever people can argue, can openly debate about criticism, they always go to an ism or you're phobic, and that's just to me that's it's inauthentic, and it's just them trying to get over us by trying to you see it work for so many years that you call somebody racist and they would shut up, and we seem to have gotten past the point where calling somebody racist makes a difference anymore, because now everything is racism, so they're finding that no longer works. And I think what we're seeing is their frustration as people are kind of confronting them about their failures, and that they're, like him, just eating off of the government dole and in what amounts to a no-show job,
So here's the point, and here's the dichotomy that we should discuss. Free speech. This is a free speech platform. We support free speech. However, there's a dichotomy between free speech in public and also when you have a political position on your responsibility and accountability and liability about the implications of your statements and your words and how impactful they are, because words do matter. We've heard that term before, and they do, especially where they come from and who they come from. And when you're an Eric Adams administration staffer like Tony Herbert, you have a responsibility to bring the public together, to bring calmness and bring resolution. Now, he has a right to believe Charlie Kirk is a racist. He has a right to not like Charlie Kirk. He has that right. He has a right to even express that as free speech. However, when we have someone that is assassinated in public, you don't have the right to, in your position, to say words that could implicate and be inflammable for other people to create violence. And this word racism has now, unfortunately, for people that are legitimately racist out there, you've now watered it down. When you determine and categorize everyone and everything as racist, you've watered it down, and you've really taken away the significance and how symbolic it is of what people have done and struggled through this country, through Jim Crow laws and the civil rights movement. It's just a complete slap in the face to Martin Luther King. It's a slap in the face to Charlie King and everyone also, because this has come completely full circle. Because Charlie King was assassinated a day before 9/11, and has come full circle to show how important it is free speech, especially when you're Charlie Kirk in that position. But Tony Herbert has a duty, whether his position is useless or not, and most likely, and what we know is that it's completely useless. It's an empty suit. Is that you have a position to bring the city and bring people together. And whether you agree with his views or not, for you to kind of put your foot on his death and his murder is absolutely ridiculous. It's irresponsible. It's completely wrong. So I tell you this right now. I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but I have to agree with his termination. It's completely irresponsible. If we saw a police officer, especially with the NYPD, act in the same manner in public, they would be terminated immediately. It's a bad look. He shouldn't do it. And I don't believe he's apologetic for it. I would hope, I do believe in redemption. Everyone loves a redemption story, someone that comes back. And I feel sorry for him. I hope that he can redeem for this. I'm sorry that he feels that people are racist, but I don't think he's apologetic. What I've seen and the attacks he has done on John, that he's not apologetic and that he's actually doubling down. And I don't believe he's sorry at all. I just think he's sorry he got caught.
Yeah, he's been calling me a racist for 3 years. I mean, so basically that's what he was getting paid to do for the last 3.5 years is run cover for Eric Adams' corruption and run cover on Eric Adams' critics and try to defame and alter them. That's what he's getting paid for. Just like, a lot of other people, a lot of people in the New York City Police Department and a lot of other people that are employed by this mayor. So absolutely disgusting. So there have been thousands of people that have been fired. Like I said, I don't wish any harm on Tony Harbor, but you're a public servant and you're cheering on violence. It's ridiculous. This nurse actually gets fired for calling out a doctor who she got fired for calling out a doctor who cheered on Charlie Kirk's death. She's sitting there with Brian Kilmeade. We're going to get into Brian Kilmeade in a second because he's the last person that should be doing this segment, and we'll get into that in a second. But here's that nurse.
Are you fired?
No, I'm not fired as of right now. Right now, I am suspended, indefinitely unpaid.
Why?
So I walked into the nurse's station and I just had learned about Charlie Kirk. I saw this guy. I didn't know who he was at the time. And he was standing there celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, saying how he deserved it. He hated Charlie Kirk and he had it coming to him. And
so you love Charlie Kirk. You didn't just want to aware of him.
I loved,
yeah,
I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk. My first retweet in 2018 it was like my first blue checkmark retweet was Charlie Kirk. I was a couple years out of college and loved him ever since.
You're aghast at this. And what'd you say?
So I looked down at his badge because I didn't know, what job, if he was a doctor or a nurse,
never saw him before.
I looked down, I see his badge and it says doctor. And I said, "You're a doctor?" I said, how are you saying this as a doctor that someone deserved to die? I mean, to me, I was just mind blown.
So what do you think about that? She reports the doctor. And what happened to Marlon? She reports the doctor and she's immediately suspended. What do you think about that? I think it violates whistleblower protection. I think that, she's got a big lawsuit on her hands.
Oh, absolutely. She was completely retaliated against because she stood up against what was completely wrong. Now, could there be an argument as far as time and place? Should she put the doctor on spot and embarrass him in front of people? Should it be a private conversation? Yes, it could be a private conversation, but it sounds like this was very in the moment. Now, does that call for suspension either? Absolutely not. She's a complete whistleblower, complete retaliation. As far as manners go and maybe ethical, should it be something done in private? Yes, right? You don't want to embarrass your supervisors or a doctor. I'm sure the doctor supervised the nurses there in public or in front of other people. So that I could understand. But that, to me, that's a conversation. But the fact that she's suspended for that just shows complete retaliation. But I'm sure that's what she'll be suspended for. They'll say that it's insubordination. That's how they'll get around that. But most likely, she has a great case here, and we've all seen this in the public. But unfortunately, what we've seen by this country right now, people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk is really, you have to ask yourself at this point, I've been saying to myself, wow, like, where have we lost humanity? I mean, I try, and I know you do, John, we talk about this often. I try to show compassion for everyone, even people that just have done a lot of bad in their life. Good people do bad things too. But I do believe in redemption. I do believe people deserve second chances. And I do believe that even if, first of all, I don't think Charlie Kirk is a racist at all. I think that he has his beliefs. Many of them I agree with, many of them I don't. However, even if he was, let's say he was an all-out racist, that still doesn't call for his murder in public. He has a wife and 2 children. That calls for civil debate. You want to change someone's mind? That's the whole point. Opposition meets opportunity. We should have civil debate. But just complete outright violence and to take someone's life and to cheer it on, all we're doing is inflaming for potential more violence. We're just igniting the flame for more violence. Is that what we need at this point? We need calm. We need resolution. We need to diffuse the situation. And especially when it comes to doctors, nurses, people that have high esteem, people that we trusted. Think about how much trust we put into in this world when it comes to doctors. So to hear that kind of rhetoric coming from a doctor, coming from a staffer in the Eric Adams administration is powerful. And these words have implications. And that's why it's so important. Yes, you're entitled to your free speech, but when you're in a position of power, your speech has to be controlled not controlled, but in a manner where it's responsible and it doesn't inflame or cause more division and potential violence.
Yeah, I think I think we could actually have a separate show on this topic alone, because I think there's a lot of there's a lot of nuance to this, and there's a lot of there's a lot of other aspects you know, where America's headed to, that touch on this topic. And like in the case of, like, just to go back on Tony Herbert, like in the case of progressive politicians, I said it before. I think the progressives are, you know, the uniparty as a whole is trying to rile up tensions between the left and the right, instead of asking for productive dialogue and conversations between the two. They want us to all be fighting each other, right? And that's all because they need distractions to divert us away from the real problems going on in America. And the problems, you know, we all know what the problems are, okay? Like the economy, that's one. But I think there's a lot of aspects to this, and that one of those is the fact that politics has literally become American culture now. And I was telling our producer Jack this when we had a conversation offline, that I feel sorry for, like, the younger generations now that grew up post 9/11, because in a lot of ways the culture that they grew up with is kind of like a degradation of America from before. And because that happened, like, I personally think a lot of people are more into politics now than they would, because in the old days we had other stuff going on, but American culture in general seems to be stagnant right now. And I think so, because so many people are involved in politics, we get what's going on now, where there's like a massive back and forth, and you get these politicians of both sides trying to, you know, push for violence between, you know, different sides of the aisle. And this is why I think this is like a conversation we could have for an entire episode.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think, and that's the thing here, is I think that both sides are inflaming very divisive rhetoric, very divisive. And I'm going to show you on the Republican side in a second, but this is just one more clown. He's Sean C. Kelly, section chief for the USERA program office in FEMA. He's in charge of ensuring that those that are deployed in the military, active or reserve duty, have their civil rights protected by their employers. This is Sean C. Kelly.
Have you spoken to anybody about the great Charlie Kirk assassination? It's also like, it's tough not to laugh at this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he's a lunatic and like awful and kind of deserves it in his own way.
So how does FEMA feel about Charlie Kirk getting shot?
Everybody's kind of laugh. I don't know. I mean, the people that are in charge of this place are like dipshits. Now,
Fox News reported that FEMA has put an official on leave from their department who stated online that Charlie Kirk was a racist, homophobic misogynist. Now,
so he gets put on leave, but that is just a bigger thing of it's swept the country, dude. Like I'm like, you know, there is a real spirit of evil across this country. And it's not just on the Democrat, leftist, progressive agenda. You know, I'm not going to buy into this divisive politics anymore, because what I'm hearing out of the right is equally disgusting. They're sitting there saying that they're sitting there saying, one, that anybody should have the right to give an opinion. They're not celebrating, but they're mourning the death of Charlie Kirk. And while they're doing that, you have Republicans in Congress writing a bill right now that if you criticize, let's say if you criticize Israel, guess what? Or you could get your passport taken. You know, like any criticism, if they don't like your speech, over your speech, you could potentially have your criticism. You could have your passport removed. I'm not talking about if you're a migrant or whatever the hell else Fox News and everything else likes to call them. I'm not talking about if you're here illegally. I'm not talking about if you're here on a green card. I'm talking about if you're American born, they're coming after your ability for your ability to speak freely. They're looking to rip out your tongue and control your speech. And that's coming out of the Trump administration. That's coming out of Republicans in office. And that's coming out of the left. As they're inflaming the flames here, they're trying to remove free speech in this country. And they're going to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who didn't rip out people's tongue. He gave them a microphone instead of ripping out their tongue, they're going to use it to try to shut down our ability for free speech. So it's absolutely disgusting. What do you guys think about all this that's happening?
I think that, back to what I said before, it's a sad state of affairs at this point. I've been saying to myself, wow, could and should a horrendous, heinous attack on someone's life like this bring everyone together and say, okay, even if you were in opposition and you didn't believe in Charlie Kirk's opinions and beliefs, can't you put your feelings aside and say, wow, this man who had civil debate, who had opposition through words, didn't deserve to die like that. Nor does anyone deserve like that. You have to ask yourself, where are the holes in this country? How did we get to this point that there's so much violence? There's so much violence because of someone's words. And that, to me, should go back to the fabric and foundation of this country. And we have to say, wow, our forefathers, I say this often, they were young men when they realized that First Amendment, your right to speech, is something so powerful that it has to be fought for. It's not something that's a God-given right. This is something that men have fought and died for, including myself, being in Iraq for almost a year, and police officers also. You fight for that also on the streets of America, ensuring that people are safe and have a right to free speech and are not attacked for what they say or how they feel. And he did it through civil course debate. He never got violent. He never made any inflammatory statements. He did it through civil debate. And I really, it's a shame at this point that we've gotten to this, that there's so much evil going on right now. There's just legitimate evil. Is it a mental health problem? Is it legitimate, just downright evil? I don't know. But I sure as hell know we have to do stuff to come together. And that's why our politicians have to be held accountable and liable and responsible. Their words are powerful to bring us together. And it's just sad at this point, politician or not, for anyone to celebrate the murder of someone else. It's really sad. It really sad that we got at this point. I expected better of America, but we've seen a major change in this country, and it's sad. Hard times create hard men, and hard men create soft times and create soft men. And I think that's where we're at. We're at the point, and I said this often, our young generation has not had, their entire lives are not based on actual facial confrontation. It's mostly our young generation. This is where I see the problem is. I don't want to go on too long of a rant, but I just want to say I see the problem is that most of this world now is, even this podcast, we're doing it by on social media. We're doing it by StreamYard here. We're on YouTube. Our friends and listeners, we're all having interactions here, but it's not a face-to-face interaction. So I feel that feeling for someone else, that intimate feeling, is not there because of social media. I think the young generation doesn't understand the implications of their words because there's no conflict or actual confrontation challenge, right? If you say certain things before social media, when we were young growing up, it could get you punched in the face. And I think that's where we're at this point, that we don't really have feelings for people anymore. We watch on camera, we watched him get murdered, and people don't feel it because they weren't there. You can watch on social media, and that's where I see the problem is. I wonder if you guys agree.
Seriously, Marlon? Come on, bro.
I'm sorry.
Stop,
Listen,
stop posting in the chat and let's go. Pay attention.
I'm right next to a window, okay, with a busy street. So I
You know what, Marlon? I consider you the smartest guy in the room, but when it comes to the mic,
Look, I need an automatic setting on this that it automatically comes back on when it's time to talk. But yeah, so I was gonna say that I think what's happening is like a culmination of the of years of being told hate speech is actually something. Yeah, and we're seeing it all coming to a head right now. And the thing is that if you don't have freedom, if you don't have the right to say abhorrent things, you don't have freedom of speech, right? Now, just because you have the right to say offensive things and abhorrent things, you don't have a right to not facing consequences for that, especially if you work for an employer, right? But when government starts saying that we're gonna take away your passport, I think that's like we're going down a very dark road that I think more people really need to pay attention to what's going on, because now the question is where do we draw the line? So today it's talking about Charlie Kirk. Tomorrow it's going to be because you criticize a certain country in the Middle East, that you're not supposed to criticize, and we all know that country. Okay. So my question is, when does this all end? And how exactly are we being told by the people who are pushing these laws that they're patriots and that this is the best course for America, when this actually is like in violation of it's like throwing the Constitution right out the window. So I think it's a dark road that we're on right now, and I wish more people would pay attention to it, and instead of being roped into the whole right left back and forth.
Yeah, 100%, and that's what they're using. I forget who said it. I think it was Saul Alinsky, where he said, "Never let a good tragedy go to waste."
Yeah.
And basically like double down and create legislation. Joel Ramirez brings up a great point here. He said, "John, what do you think is next? They're working on removing guns from all transgenders. The question is, if this goes through, who's next?"
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're seeing when we talk about speech and what hate speech is. Right. Hate speech is saying that Eric can't have a baby. That's hate speech today in America, people. When in fact, it's the absolute truth. Eric cannot have a baby. He can't. I'm sorry. He cannot be impregnated. I hate to break it to you, RH, but Eric is not going to is not going to birth your child. He's not a birthing person.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
What's a woman? What's a woman, John?
We don't know. We don't know. And like, so that's considered hate speech. And I know you didn't mean it, Eric, but you slipped up a little, and you said that speech isn't a God-given right. And I'm just gonna say it absolutely is, and that was like the foundational belief of it. I know you kind of mixed your words, and I know you didn't mean it, but I just want to get back onto what like free speech was put in here for that. Like the founding of the nation was religious freedom, right? So you're entitled to your beliefs. Right. And if my belief may be offensive to you. Right. Like and so like that's what free speech is basically is holding the line on, is your ability to believe in your God. And nobody, no government, no employer could take that away from you. So and I agree with you, Eric, that it needs to be fought for in each generation to cap. But I think that's what we're losing, because we have a generation of children who no longer believe in God, whatever it is, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Catholic, whether you're a Jew, like whatever you are, we've all kind of, as we became more and more Americanized, we've all kind of moved further from the church, from whatever church you belong to. And I think that's also another huge factor into why we're seeing this hate. Because these are things that weren't acceptable in society before. It wasn't acceptable to say horrible things and think, oh, yeah, people are going to come to my business after I just cheered on the murder of an innocent man. And so, like, that's what's happening, what's happening. And, yeah, 100%. Like, that's why I push back so hard on Mike Lawler and that other idiot from Long Island who Trump just hired doing something. I forget what his name is. He was a cop, detective turned congressman, one term, as he deserved to be, because he voted with the Democrats, just like Lawler most of the time. And when they're putting this anti-Semitism bill together, where they're saying that, oh, any claims that the Jews killed Jesus, you're an anti-Semite. So I was like, oh, congratulations, gentlemen. You just labeled the New Testament and every Catholic and Christian an anti-Semite. And what was the goal there? And yeah, the goal is to continuously restrict and remove speech and remove your God-given rights, like to own a firearm, to own all these things, because that's another vital right. And we should all be protecting his rights, whether it's for transgenders, whether it's for white nationalists, whatever the hell that means. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and our God-given rights, our constitutional rights, we should all be standing up for. And the people that swore an oath and we elected to do that should be doing that. And if they're not doing that, they should be removed. I don't care if it's an election year or not.
Spot on, brother. I want to thank you. I apologize, friends and listeners. I've been driving for a week back from Alaska. I haven't slept. I'm exhausted, but you're absolutely right. What I meant to say, and I appreciate you saying that it is a God-given right, but it's not if we don't fight for it. That's what I meant to say. Because even though it's a God-given right, which there are many things that are God-given rights, we have to fight for them. We have to fight for them because there are people that are trying to take it away. Because, like Sal Greco says, that there are just some people that are ungodly. There are people that are ungodly in this country, and they want to take those rights away for their own agenda or their own concerns. So these God-given rights, and that's why I always say I'm so impressed by our forefathers. You know, being a history major in college, I got a bachelor's in history. If you look at our forefathers, it's so impressive because they were young kids. They were 19, 20 years old. They were young kids back then, but they knew the weight of how these God-given rights have to be fought for because people will try to take them away. So, and while they are granted to us by God, we cannot take them for granted and realize that men have fought and died in this country for free speech. If it wasn't for the great men of World War II, we'd probably be speaking another language right now. So it's so important that we fight this battle, and that it has to constantly get there. And that's why I say with this generation, I think that while this generation, a lot of good has come out, and they're super intelligent and through social media and the internet, I think they lost that face-to-face confrontation and that real feeling for another man. And when I say that, you know, when men meet each other, there's no doubt about it. When men meet each other, there's always some kind of peacocking, and men check each other. Men keep each other in line. And when you're having these conversations on social media and you don't have that interaction, no one's really holding each other accountable. The way people talk on social media, the way they feel about others, I believe would be different if they had more face-to-face confrontation. And I think that's why we've become so, well, not sympathetic towards things that we see, atrocities, especially people celebrating the death and the murder of Charlie Kirk, is because they don't have those interactions anymore. So I think that's the problem. You know, when you're young, growing up, knowing that if you said certain things it could get you punched in the face, while that may be right or wrong, it keeps you accountable and it keeps you in check. And it's figuratively speaking for life. You have to understand that things you say can get you punched in the face and hit in the gut, whether it's an actual punch in the face or it's you losing your job or being held accountable for things that you say. Now, I don't believe in hate speech. I believe all speech should be free. But when you're in a position of power and you're in a position of employment, your speech has to be professional and has to be the one that is the voice of reasoning.
Yeah, I think they lost that, and there's an argument to be made about the rise of the internet and how that corresponds with that loss of face-to-face say interaction. You know, the rise of social media networks and that. But I think, you know, I'm going back to them losing culture and losing cultural avenues to express rebellion. And that coupled with the fact that a lot of them grew up under helicopter parenting, you know, kind of pushed us where we are. And I think having a lack of shared culture for their generation is what's contributing to what you see happening now, you know, where everybody is you know, it's not just politics, it's their culture, you know. It's why, like, you see like the rainbow flag is like a movement, you know. Who'd have thought of that? That's like a movement for that generation, yeah. But yeah, this like you said, this has to be fought for, and you know, we have to keep eyes on it as the people are trying to take it away from us, you know, because once it's gone, I don't think it's ever gonna come back again. And keep an eye on this, because I think this is going to be a larger conversation as we go forward, because I see like a lot of things coming to a head on it, and I at this point I just don't see how we're going to avoid having that larger conversation.
Yeah, and super chats. We're gonna give you guys all a shout out at the end. I know there's a question in there, and we'll get to it. I'm gonna take a little break from the comments. My eyes are starting to get to me. I'm getting a little old. We're going 2:30. But we'll get to them at the end. We'll get to all the
losing stamina.
Yeah. So if anybody has a question, put it in the super chats because I'm not gonna see it. So and we'll get to it at the end. We'll get to it at the end of the show. But so anyway, so everyone's talking about Charlie Kirk. Kilmeade's doing interviews about people that are getting fired, people that were suspended. Lawrence B. Jones, same thing. I mean, they're talking all this stuff, and then they start talking about the brutal North Carolina murder that was done by a mentally ill homeless person that murdered an innocent girl sitting on a train doing nothing, not bothering anyone. And again, it's a huge failure in public safety. Who failed? Who failed? Is it the sick? Is it the homeless? Is it the mentally ill? Or is it our politicians that take billions of our tax dollars each year and do absolutely nothing to help the mentally ill or the homeless? And they also spend billions of dollars on law enforcement, and they clearly don't know how to properly deploy resources and keep your mass transit system safe. So they leave you defenseless on the subways saying you can't open carry, you can't defend yourself. And they do nothing to keep people who are a harm to themselves or others from harming you. And then, so this is the narrative that now Fox News starts to push, and I think it's horrendous. Brian Kilmeade has issued an apology after this segment came out. I honestly think it's disgusting, and I think it's something that, again, just shows that most people don't understand public safety. Most people don't understand policing. And there is an evil spirit in this country, and it's infecting both the left and the right. Listen to what Brian Kilmeade and Lawrence B. Jones have to say about mentally ill and homeless people. Now, again, the guy that murdered that girl, should he be met with the death penalty? Absolutely. Absolutely, he should. Again, another biblical principle, right? So, take a life, and so shall your life be taken, right? And take an innocent life, you got a big problem, So, but that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about locking up people that are homeless, locking up people that are mentally ill, and going as far as killing them. And I can't understand how this is also turning up the temperature in America and causing fans to flame between the left and the right, and really just devaluing human life. And this was absolutely disgusting. When I heard this, I was like, I can't believe what I'm listening to.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting.
I mean, what do you guys think? So lock up homeless people who don't want to go into a homeless shelter because it's dangerous and they get raped and robbed in there. And again, we support involuntary removals of those who are a harm to themselves or others being brought to a psychiatric facility and giving them the proper treatment they need and releasing them only when they are no longer a danger to themselves or others. So we support involuntary removal on the show. However, there are people that are homeless across this country that are willingly homeless. And while I don't support with them just popping a tent, obviously, or sitting up anywhere they want, you can't just force people because you claim that they're homeless or however, and you're going to stick them in institutions. And then, hey, and let's just hit them with a lethal injection, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Is this guy Canadian? Because, they have legalized euthanasia over there. This is just that comment is just absurd. Just.
I better get out of kind of quick, Marlon. I'm here right now.
Hey, better be careful what you're saying, Canada, the People's Republic of Canada up there, you know.
It sure is.
Yeah. But yeah, this comment is just completely out of line, and the fact that none of his hosts looked at him like, what are you talking about, or even like confronted him on that is the other thing that should make us like question what's going on. You know, whenever the media does things like this, call me conspiracist or whatever, but whenever the media does things like this, I don't think it's coincidence. I think they're just putting it out there, you know, to see what putting feelers out there, you know, to see what the reaction is going to be like, especially now that we have social media and you can almost see it immediately, you know. But this comment is just next level out of line, and he should have been. I personally think he should have been off the network for like maybe a month at least for saying that, you know.
Well, I'll say on this network that we don't see things through a one-way mirror. It's two-sided, and we give a fair assessment, right? We give a fair assessment on what happens on the left, and we give a fair assessment on what happens on the right. Fox News was supposedly conservative media at some point, but the bottom line is we have to hold people accountable, and his words were inflammatory, irresponsible, no different from what Tony Herbert said. They're both irresponsible, inflammable, and you should be held accountable, and he should be held responsible for it, and there should be some type of discipline with the network as far as his statements. You know, I'm not sure exactly if that's what he meant. Maybe it was just figuratively speaking. It does seem that he was just saying, hey, kill them all. Maybe it was in the moment what he was saying, but the bottom line is he has to be more intelligible and have more emotional intelligence, especially right now at the height of things. I mean, we're in some volatile times in this country where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. This young poor girl was just completely brutalized on the train in North Carolina. It was a shame. But we need to look at what's the real problem. The problem is the leadership in this country. It's the politics, and the politics are the leadership of this country that we've gotten to this point. Is mental health a problem? Yes, but the leadership is never handling this problem. Do we just discard these people and throw them away? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. John, I think you said it earlier. You've had people that had mental illness in your family. I've had numerous friends that have suffered from mental illness, men and women that I've served with in the military, men that have suffered severely from trauma and things that are on their mind. And I'm sure many people in the police department and law enforcement throughout the entire country have suffered through trauma. Do we discard people with mental illness? Absolutely not. We need to care for them, just like someone that has a broken leg. We need to care for them. This is completely irresponsible. You know, as far as go ahead, Marlon. But as far as
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. Yeah.
No, but as far as a death penalty or something like that, that's a different discussion. But the manner and the context they were saying, I think was completely irresponsible. And we need responsibility from people that have power. When you're on television and you're mainstream media, your words are impactful. And I don't think they realize their implications anymore. No longer are journalists held accountable as they were before. And the reason why I think is many times journalists are put on the red carpet or put on the spot. What you hear often is they'll say, well, I'm not really a journalist, I'm an entertainer. And that's how they get around these things.
No, and the whole thing is like, you know, it's just like Joel Ramirez brings it up. Like, oh, that's what he thinks about the homeless. What do you think he thinks about the middle class? And that is absolutely true. And what does he think about the United States Constitution? Does he consider himself a Christian? Because it doesn't sound like these aren't conservative talking points. These aren't Christian talking points. These aren't, I mean, this is literally Nazi propaganda. That's what it is. And I'm with you, Marlon. I don't buy for 1 second that wasn't completely intentional. You know, lock them up. You know, Lawrence B. Jones, you're in Texas, right, bro? You're in Texas, the free state of Texas, bro. Everything's bigger and better in Texas. But you're going to lock people up if they decide, or maybe we could consider Eric homeless. He's traveling a thing. Maybe we could just lock him up, throw him in the thing, you know? And like, you know, and like it's, you know, they sit there and say that they support freedom and they're on the opposite side of the left and nobody should be making horrible claims. And then you're sitting there saying, yeah, we should be able to lock you up at any point and kill you and even kill you. I mean, that's basically, that was Hitler's public safety plan. Like, that's what Fox News is now adopting. And, you know, I was on Newsmax a couple of months ago, and I was with David Harris Jr., and he was talking about Luigi Mangione and how all these people, you know, how it's a sick society, how all these people are like cheering on Luigi Mangione. And he said, oh, they should be thrown in jail. Shouldn't they be thrown in jail? And I was like, I'm a free speech absolutist. I think that it's absolutely horrible what they're doing. But no, I don't think that they should be thrown in jail. I think they should be shunned by society. I think they should be taught better. I think they should be exposed for who they are. But no, I don't think that they should be thrown in jail. You know, and so, like, you know, you got to really watch and listen to who you got to listen to. Like, if you're going to listen to these people, you have to understand one thing: they're talking heads. They don't understand most of the issues they're talking about, and clearly, they don't have well thought out, nuanced positions on public safety. They don't understand the United States Constitution. They don't understand law, and they're just as flawed as the people they're criticizing. Am I saying that they need to be removed and fired? Well, you know what? If Tony Herbert got fired, you know, I was like, well, and they're cheering that on. So, like, what's the difference here? Why shouldn't the left be cheering on their firing too? It's, you know, it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that his comments weren't facetious. You know, it wasn't just like a moment of inappropriate humor. You know, because he said it with a serious face after, and he says killed him. You know, so that's just completely outrageous. You know, and I also want to point out the fact that you guys in the chat and you guys who are watching us, whenever you hear these incidents of either a mass shooting or a lot of these horrific videos we've seen, like the Ukrainian immigrant who was killed in North Carolina. Whenever you hear these incidents, and they bring up the guy's mental health, ask yourself about what I said before about his pharmaceutical history, because that really needs to be talked about. I'm pointing this out only because we're jumping. You have people like this jumping straight to that, and not even asking questions about, you know, hey, what role did that place on in terms of what role does this medication have in terms of creating these psychos in society and for creating mentally unbalanced people? They're not having that conversation. And what's also interesting enough is how much money that you know, that industry pays to networks like Fox, because these companies are massive advertisers for Fox. You know, so maybe it's just not uncoincidental that they're not talking about this, while going to some extreme position like euthanasia. You know.
I think let's go. I think we hit this nail on the head. Let's go to the next segment.
Yeah, let's just get through. Let's just give a shout out to everybody that did donated
absolutely
today. Hassan donated. He said, "Good morning, everyone. Please, Mo, BMS Bob, and Lumberjack EDM, Mute Button King, aka Marlon. You guys need to stop cutting each other off, and you need to start hugging and kissing each other in loving memories." So I that's my new name for Mute Button King, Marlon. That's it. So thank you. Tom said, John, you get attacked here a lot, but when you come back, you will get many calls from people wanting to work for you. You will have the last laugh. Thank you, Tom. Raphael Martinez, $20. He says, for making the sauce, or the sauce, as we like to say, you know.
Well, the gravy.
Anybody that says gravy, you know, you're not from New York, bro.
Is that Northern Italians, right? The gravy? Isn't there a difference? Northern Italians and Southern Italians?
I don't know.
I'm gonna find this out, man.
I don't know. I don't separate. I'm Sicilian too. My Macari's, the town of Macari's in Sicily too. But unlike Sal, I don't say I'm Sicilian. I'm not Thai.
He's a Thai. Marlon's Sicilian too, right, Marlon?
Distant cousin. So, all right, Momo, he had a question. He says, what are your thoughts on the 31 cops and recruits who are waiting to see if they will keep their city, their jobs, or the city looking to terminate, since the judge extended it again so both parties can negotiate? Real quick, my thought on it. I just find it. I find it very funny that the justice system actually is working again in New York City, and again we're now adhering to labor rights, contract rights, and civil rights of employees in New York City. Because again, that's not what we're seeing from the courts, myself or Marlon, and we're not seeing that level of care and compassion from the unions and from the fraternity organizations. Also, I know Pat Gordon came on here, but like, are you advocating for Marlon? I know that who's the guy that looks like Ric Flair, the head of the DEA?
Scott Monroe.
Scott Monroe, yeah, Ric Flair. He came on here. He said he was going to help Marlon. He came on here. He said he was going to help Marlon. We haven't heard from him since. We don't know where he is. We haven't found him. We haven't found him. Nobody's helped. So I find it laughable that they pick and choose which times they're gonna stand up for actual laws in the city. But we'll see what happens. I mean, they're negotiating. I don't know. I'm still waiting. We're still waiting for our negotiation.
Ric Flair. You just made me laugh because Ric Flair was in a music video with Bad Bunny, and he did that. Woo! It was hilarious. I don't know if you know Bad Bunny. Another one here. Shout out Eddie West, Coffee and Donuts, $9.99. Thank you, brother. Happy Monday. Coffee and cigars. I love it, brother. Eric, bring it in the fall vibes. Yeah, dude, it's cold over here, brother. Eric, we gotta start the finest unfiltered cigars. Yes, that's my plan. I want to start the finest unfiltered cigars, brother. Eddie West, you'll be on that, man. You'll be on that panel. But as far as that question before, John, I think that this case, I think if it wasn't for the pressure of the Finance Unfiltered Network, along with the collaboration with Eric Sanders, putting the pressure right now, I think that those police officers, unfortunately, would get fired and this whole thing would go away. But I think right now, because of the Finance Unfiltered and the pressure of Eric Sanders, we're getting a different turnout and a different byproduct and a different outcome. But Ric Flair, woo! So the Kaz Daughtry, John Shell, woo! And all the trolls today, yeah, shout out to you too.
Yeah. If you think Scott's put on a disappearing act now, wait until after Eric Adams, loses or drops out this race this week. If the rumors are correct, yeah, we might have to go to the fifth squad and ask them to put in a missing report for him.
That's hilarious.
Nobody. All right, what else we got? We got Momo. All right, Bella says Mondani is anti-Israel? ? He's not, but who cares? Israel is the one funding Adams and his corrupt administration. Funny how everyone's brave until Israel comes into the picture. Yeah, I mean, listen, and there's a lot of questions, a lot of debate right now about Charlie Kirk. Netanyahu was on Newsmax. He said on Newsmax, Israel did not assassinate Charlie Kirk. I found it insane that he even acknowledged that. But yeah, that is the question. If you guys, Max Blumenthal runs the gray zone. I don't necessarily agree with Max Blumenthal on a lot of things. However, he did support the stance that we took for medical freedom, the chance for religious freedom. So I'll give a big shout out to Max Blumenthal. But he runs the gray zone. He recently just put out an article detailing how Charlie Kirk was basically in a battle with some big donors, big Israeli donors and big Israeli money. And he had taken money in the past from them, and he was highly conflicted, and he was worried, and he had supposedly told people that they were looking to kill him, and he was afraid, and he was angry about that. So, I mean, that raises an eyebrow. So check out that article in the gray zone. Tom says, $1.99 free speech is free until the background check. And then our brother Eddie West. So appreciate all you guys. And I think from now on, guys, if you do the super chats, we'll get to them at the end if you have any questions. Just because, like, when we're going through a segment, we can't just bring in something that's totally irrelevant. And a lot of you guys ask questions that are totally irrelevant a lot. And we're just not going to bring it up because it's just going to kill the whole flow of the show and the whole topic. So if you do have a question that's off topic, put it in the super chat. We'll get to it at the end.
Yeah. Coffee and donuts at the end. Just get us a lot of coffee. All right. We don't want small coffees here. Large coffee.
I drink mushroom coffee now, so it's a little bit more expensive, you know. So it's like, and then I got to put cacao in there to make it.
You're all bougie now, huh?
I'm bougie, yeah.
You're drinking your mushroom coffee with your gummies.
I was always a coffee snob. Yeah, you gotta take magnesium gummies, bro. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, he's trying not to scare the neighborhood. You know, he already had the sheriff's department show up at his house.
Yeah,
you know?
Twice. When I first moved, my friend from New York came. His son, like, I don't know what the hell he was doing. He was like 3 years old. He dialed 911, and then he was chasing my daughter around. I'm gonna get Sophie. I'm gonna hit. I'm gonna hit. You know, like saying like whatever. My saying my daughter, like, you know, like chasing her around. So then my friend's like takes his phone back from his son. And he's like looking at it, and he's like keeps looking at it. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And he's like, dude, I think he called 911. My phone keeps ringing. I don't know what the hell it says. I was like, pick it up. So they pick it up, and it's like the sheriff's office on the other end. They're like, oh, sorry, we got to come to where you are. We heard that there was violence there. But meanwhile, it was clearly kids playing. You know, they're laughing. They're running around. So he's like, yeah, okay. So he gives them my address. They come. They show up, multiple deputies. One of the deputies that comes, I don't know her, but like kind of she was familiar, and she felt like I was familiar to her. So we start talking, and she winded up leaving over the mandate as well. And she was like super happy. So they stayed in my house for like half hour, 45 minutes while we were bullshitting, right? Like talking, you know, I had them like yell at the kids a little bit. Like, you know, like we were joking, we were getting to know them, talking to them. And then I walk out and I'm like, holy shit. There's cop cars lined my whole block. I'm like, they definitely think that I'm like, they're like, yeah, typical Italian, you know, like typical Italian beating his wife, you know, and like, you know, I was like, here we go. And then so that happened. And I never addressed it with any of my neighbors because I was like, how do I bring that up just randomly? It'll just seem like you were guilty of something, right? Like something like what you're saying is not the truth. But I was like, oh my God, they definitely think like, what the hell happened? They were here for an hour blocking my whole street. Meanwhile, we were just laughing and joking inside. And then that happened when the NYPD swatted me, when the IAB did. And it was the same thing. I start talking to them and I'm like, I'm revved up because of the whole thing that happened. And I walk out and I'm like, oh my God, my neighbors, what the hell do they think about my house? So yeah, I've had the cops to my house twice since living here. So
I think, Marlon, am I right? I think his neighbors probably think he's on the lam. You probably see this guy with a tent in front of his house, you know, because of this podcast. We're always all on the phone. He's probably on the phone talking, looking around with his tight shirts. He just came out of, you know, doing his solo videos, shirtless. Who is this guy?
Yeah, don't walk outside with like a wife beater on, John, you know? And you better stop pronouncing that sauce. You know, you gotta it's gravy, okay?
How do I say coffee? And like, how do I say coffee? Like, what should I say? Like, it's I'm having an espresso, sir.
Hey, excuse me, sir. You're kind of loud over here.
Yeah. So
now, listen. Now, I've been to John's house here. So if anybody wants his address, if you give the right amount of coffee and donuts, I'll give it to you, Juju. Don't worry.
Yeah, and if you show up with New York plates, make sure you park a couple blocks down. You don't want to scare them even more.
Juju already has it, right? Him and Travis Rutherford.
Juju, unfortunately, I am also not a birthing person. I hate it. I'm still good though. I'm taking all my vitamins and stuff, so I could probably impregnate you. But
what's a woman anyway, right? What's a woman?
What's a woman? All right, so last segment of the day, baby. Style across the aisle. Let's see this. This is
Mariano Rivera of the Finance Unfiltered.
Closer, baby. The undefeated champion of Closer. Woo! The world champ. Style across the aisle. All right, people. If you're in New York City, if you own property in New York City, you own businesses in New York City, this is what your tax dollars are going to. Oh my goodness, here we go. And it's damn worth it. I just want to tell you, this is the best. I'm happy that my tax dollars went to this actually, because this entertained me.
Kaz Daughtry, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, just arrived at the fashion show, about to get ready to walk. Let's go inside and meet my designer. Here. Here's my stuff right here. More $1,000. doing that Muggsy McFly today. So, Muggs, what we got for me today? What we gonna wear?
Don't try to sneak in toothpicks. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. We're gonna start off with the denim, the fur jacket.
Okay.
Sauce, man.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, the feet right.
Okay.
No, so fly than ever.
I'm gonna go change right now. Be right back. You're definitely shooting for two.
Fist pumping.
None of the work.
I have no fucking idea what we just watched or what happened. I'm sorry.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I love it. Kaz Daughtry, you and man, that shit is hysterical. Mariano Rivera, the finest unfiltered, has been coined to Kaz Daughtry. Thank you, brother.
You know Kaz is hanging out around nothing but like liberals and progressives now, right? Because if he was still hanging out around cops, I'm not so sure he would do that, you know? Because if you're hanging around cops, they're gonna laugh at you and lampoon you all day.
I mean, I'm, Marlon, are you? The bottom line is this: are you happy that your tax dollars went to that video? Because I am. I paid a lot of taxes this year. I just paid my property tax. Like I'm actually happy. Like this was. I don't know what the hell I watched, but I was entertained.
How much you think that coat cost? All kidding aside, how much you think that coat cost? That looks pretty expensive.
Dude, I don't even know what that was, but like the video that we just watched, that cost a lot of money. That cost a lot of money.
That coat was no joke. That cost money. That cost money.
I want to know how many people were attacked in the subway and pushed down onto the tracks while that was going on.
Oh, there was a lot of. That was the night. That was the day. I think it was the day or the day before that that elderly couple was tied up in their house, stabbed to death, and burned alive. So
yes.
And there was numerous other shootings that day, even though it was in. So I just think it is truly shocking. What's really more shocking to me is that the media doesn't report the misuse of this, like the misuse of all these city funds and what's actually happening. I mean, I think Marlon, you said it best. They're almost laughing at us at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like just throwing it in all of our faces. So it's for like if you're on the like your RH or your Juju or any of these losers. Well, no, those guys, they're actually part of the in crowd, not those guys, but RH and like. If you consider yourself to the left of us or us on the right, we have much more in common than we do with these people. You know what I mean? They're not paying for a dollar. They're grifting. They're getting tons of money to do nothing while we're all suffering. And us like idiots are going to argue and fight it out. And what you need to start understanding is this is not a battle of left or right. This is a battle of up or down. This is a battle of the elites. The people who were once like us that they brought to be the mouthpieces for them, who are now elite, and us, the working class and the poor. Like, this is what's happening here. It's no longer left or right. It's up or down. Sooner or later, people in America are going to start to realize that. The assassination of Charlie Kirk should have woke a lot of people up. Unfortunately, I think it's only going to inflame the battle between the left and right. And we need to start paying better attention to what's happening in the media, because that's all Eric Adams is. That's all Kaz Daughtry are. They're a mouthpiece for the working class when, in fact, they're just the elite's water boys. That's all they are. And so are the same two losers on Fox News, water boys for the elites. That's all they are. Just like John Shell's a water boy for Eric Adams, and he likes to wipe the sweat off his nuts after he was at a Diddy party. Same thing.
You got to get that baby oil off, Listen, 3 hours and 3 minutes into it. I want to shout out to everyone. Thank you, friends and listeners. Thank you to our trolls and haters. We love you. You grow the content. You grow the podcast. So don't go away. You're always invited here. Of course, tomorrow, Sal Greco. Sal doesn't disappoint. He'll be here, of course, for Tuesday's show. And then Tuesday night, 10-4 Tavern. If you haven't tuned in yet, please tune in. Pete Faselli and Tom Joyce, two great guys, great experience, great resume, and they'll provide an awesome show. And, of course, Wednesday we'll be back. And then Wednesday night, as always, your weekly executive perspective. So stay with us. 3 hours and 5 minutes into it. Your stamina is awesome. We appreciate it. The finest Unfiltered. Marlon, you want to close us out, brother?
Wait, before you go, I just want to say the next mayor of New York City, Curtis Sliwa, is in the chat. He says that guy will be fired on day one. So you heard it here, people. So, January 1st, 2026, I'm waiting to get canceled. And that's it. 1804 Banks. John, you will be canceled now. The other guy we're canceling.
Hey, you know what, Curtis?
What do you got, brother?
That's right. Curtis, shout out to you, brother, because we want to see that. Day one, start cleaning the house. Thank you so much. And with that being said, woo! Cass Daughtry, thank you, brother.
Yeah. Shout out to Curtis Sliwa, Thanks for joining us, guys. Hope everyone has a great day today, and everyone who's on patrol stays safe and alert. And just pay attention to what's going on in the media, and don't fall for this civil war nonsense and all this distractions. So take care.
Yeah,
I'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that missed the show earlier, go back, hit rewind, do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, help us move up in the algorithm. We just cracked 36,000. Like we said, we're going to be bigger than the NYPD come January 2026 while they're trying to cancel us. So we're getting close there. So keep us moving up in those charts. We appreciate everybody for being here. And we're going to leave you guys one last hurrah. You get to see the video of the day, people. All right, find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you. Check out Sal Greco tomorrow, 13:05, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time.
Cass Daughtry, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, just arrived at the fashion show, about to get ready to walk. Let's go inside and meet my designer. Here. Here's my stuff right here.
Boy, $1,000 doing that Muggs look Friday.
So, Muggs, what we got for me today? What we gonna wear?
I'm gonna try and sneak in toothpicks. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. We're gonna start off with the denim, the fur jacket.
Okay.
Sauce, man.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, eat right.
Okay.
Go, so fly it ever.
I'm gonna go change right now. Be right back. You're definitely shooting for twos.
None of the work, yeah.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.